Chapter 76, Catch It. Misdreavus's string of pearls flickered with a bewitching crimson light, accentuating the Pokémon's demonic charm. Deep crimson irises, nightmarish figure, and hair resembling Medusa, making Misdreavus look even more otherworldly. Misdreavus. In response to Terrence's invitation, it gave a straightforward answer. Battle. You've chosen the simplest way to settle this. Terrence chuckled. Swablu you swablu you. Swablu seemed quite satisfied with Misdreavus's choice, flapping its cotton-like wings and circling around Terrence. Leave it to the little one. Terrence glanced at the eager beautifully and smiled helplessly. Misdreavus. While Terrence was explaining, Misdreavus had already launched an attack. A faint purple psywave mysteriously surged towards Swablu, but Swablu just tilted slightly to the side and dodged it. Not one to back down, Misdreavus concealed its body and quietly disappeared from sight. It hasn't left. After receiving Giraffe Eric's signal, Terrence reassured Swablu and patiently awaited Misdreavus's sneak attack. Whoosh! Suddenly, a piercing cry that seemed to penetrate the soul rang out, startling the fully focused Swablu. It quickly flew higher, vigilantly surveying its surroundings. The next moment, a purple beam struck once more. Swablu immediately accelerated, skillfully evading it. However, just as it dodged, 1, 2, 3, purple beams followed one after another from various directions, the assault exceptionally swift and fierce. Troubles never come alone. Muttering under his breath, Terrence issued a command, use Cotton Guard. Upon receiving the command, in the blink of an eye, Swablu's fluffy, downy feathers immediately enveloped its body, and its cotton-like plumage continued to expand. And now, use Feather Dance. As the feathers expanded with a flash of white light, they split into smaller clusters, scattering all around and filling the entire sky with a flurry of feathers. Buzz! Misdreavus's purple beam swept through the sea of cotton, but Swablu was like a fish in water, making it even more challenging to discern its location. To the south, between the 4th and 5th cotton cluster next to you, attack there. Terrence suddenly ordered while constantly scanning the battlefield. Dragon Pulse. A shockwave was unleashed from its massive mouth towards the opponent. However, considering Swablu's size, it couldn't possibly have a massive mouth. Instead, its tiny white beak suddenly emitted a powerful blue-purple radiance, unleashing a shockwave roughly twice the thickness of its own body that tore through the sky. Almost instantly after Terrence spoke, Swablu understood his intent. Without giving Misdreavus a moment to think, the blue-purple beam swept through the cotton plumage, scattering them in all directions before heading fiercely towards the direction Terrence indicated. Misdreavus. Regrettably, because of the distance, the agile Misdreavus instinctively dodged it. Yet, after the close call with the Dragon Pulse, Misdreavus not only felt palpitations but also cast a spiteful glance at it, and under this gaze, a strange fluctuation linked Swablu and Misdreavus, creating an eerie equilibrium. This move is spite. The old man Kamigata, who was watching the battle from the side, suddenly spoke. Spite, hey. However, it is useless. Even without using Dragon Pulse again, this match has already reached its conclusion. Terrence had pinpointed Misdreavus's location. First, Feather Dance revealed its location, and later due to being struck by Dragon Pulse, Misdreavus was now fully visible to Swablu. One high in the sky, one below. Swablu took a higher vantage point, gazing at Misdreavus at a 30-degree angle, seemingly signaling that the match was over. Misdreavus! Misdreavus! Two inexplicable cries echoed, and Misdreavus began to gather energy once again. This time, all its energy converged on the largest pearl on its body, reflecting a glamorous red light that turned into a reddish-purple energy ball. Rings of energy fluctuation slowly emanated from it. Safeguard, then use Dragon Rush. Seeing Misdreavus's actions, Terrence smiled faintly. In a head-on confrontation, as long as he could suppress the opponent's ultimate move, he would be the victor. Rings of light, filled with bewildering power, were reflected from the red pearl and directly attacked Swablu. This was a psychic-type move, Psybeam, which was filled with chaotic energy. Meanwhile, on Swablu's side, a blue-purple flame slowly emerged from its body, and its aura continued to strengthen. Following Dragon Rush, a terrifying intimidation and killing intent suddenly appeared and the aura turned solid. Seeing this, the eyes of Misdreavus in the distance couldn't help but turn serious. Swoosh! Swoosh! With a movement speed comparable to agility, Swablu rushed through the sky like a lightning bolt, looking heroic. Faced with the approaching Psybeam, Swablu, under the protection of Safeguard, charged forward bravely, diving into the beam. The magical power of the Psybeam gradually whittled away Dragon Rush, and the chaotic energy continually wore down the protective state. However, in just a brief moment, from the execution of Dragon Rush to this point, Swablu had arrived directly in front of Misdreavus. The blue-purple flame carried it forward towards Misdreavus, and then, silence descended. Terence could tell, even with his eyes closed, that Misdreavus had no chance of winning against Swablu's Dragon Rush, which was powered by Dragon-type bloodline. Terence approached and looked at the body lying on the ground, covered in wounds and dust, and his excitement settled down. This was the third Pokémon he was about to capture, his third companion. The road ahead was long, and every one of his Pokémon would become his greatest support on the journey. But, first and foremost, he needed to capture this talented little Misdreavus. Although it was hit by Dragon Rush, the small Misdreavus quickly recovered. Terence noticed that even though the little guy had been defeated, its eyes were still filled with a mischievous and cunning look. "You little rascal! Are you having second thoughts?" Terence rubbed his forehead and said to the cantankerous Misdreavus. But the more Misdreavus acted like this, the more Terence liked it. "You don't have a choice now." Swablu and Beautifully closed in on Misdreavus from both sides, leaving it with no way to escape. Little Misdreavus glanced around, then saw Girafarig not far away staring at it intently, and its deep red pupils revealed a pitiful look. "There's no turning back now. Come on, from today onwards, we are partners." Terence took out the Ultra Ball and gently placed it on the ground. "Accept my invitation. If you want to witness a wider world." Terence said this very seriously because he knew that Misdreavus could understand human language and emotions. This time, Misdreavus restrained its stubborn emotions, which was rare for it. It didn't put up much resistance, and used its enchanting red eyes to stare at Terence. Slowly, it moved and gently tapped the Pokeball, then it transformed into a beam of light and entered it. With the Pokeballs flashing and shaking, Terence's originally calm heart became excited once again, until finally, a ding sound rang out, causing him to smile happily. Not only him, but Swablu and Beautifully also fluttered with joy as they circled around in the sky, seemingly welcoming the arrival of their new companion. Chapter 77, Strange Person. Misdreavus' mischievous nature was inherent, and the reason Terence didn't mind it was that it would mature sooner or later. After evolving, Misdreavus loses its mischievous and playful nature and gains a sense of wisdom and stability, appearing more profound. It no longer resembles a little companion to the trainer but transforms into a reliable partner, becoming more dependable. Beautifully. Swablu. Coming out of the Ultra Ball, Misdreavus's mischievous demeanor remained unchanged. Those cunning dual pupils of Misdreavus bypassed Terence and fixed their gaze on the Swablu circling around him. "Misdreavus, Misdreavus!" Little Misdreavus called out to Swablu twice. There will be chances in the future. Terence saw the little Misdreavus, and even if he didn't understand what it was saying, he could probably grasp its mood. "Congratulations!" The rancher and the old man Kamigata walked over, smiling. One day later, outside Cerulean Town, Terence waved goodbye to old man Kamigata and the rancher, who were seeing him off, and set out on the return journey once again. Because he had become acquainted with them, both rancher and old man Kamigata were quite enthusiastic, and Terence had reluctantly stayed another day. At this moment, beside him, apart from the Four-Nose Pass, the other three Pokémon were all taken out. Swablu, keep accelerating and try to create an updraft with high speed to form a twister. Beautifully, sense the changes in the air currents around Swablu, give it advice, and learn to adapt. As for Misdreavus, Terence pondered for a moment. Although the illusions you create are good, they still have significant loopholes and would only work on careless humans. Terence hadn't even finished speaking when Misdreavus began to sneer at him. As if saying that he was a careless guy too. "The weather is nice." After leaving Cerulean Town, Terence was in a good mood. Capturing Misdreavus was the biggest harvest from this trip. He was heading to Veilstone City now, and if he took the normal route, there was quite a distance between Cerulean Town and Veilstone City. The biggest obstacle to reaching Veilstone City was its terrain. This city was built on steep rocky mountains, and the roads were treacherous. However, this was also convenient. As long as a daring trainer wanted, they could choose the shortest mountain path, climbing directly over the mountain to reach Veilstone City. Terence made this choice. He was pressed for time and he needed to find transportation back to Sootopolis City while buying some items at the Veilstone department store. With Beautifully by his side, he didn't feel any danger. Moreover, in the vicinity of human cities, there were rarely any particularly fierce Pokémon. Misdreavus, your current offensive methods are too lacking. These kinds of low-level illusions aren't enough. In a battle where one is fully concentrated, nobody will be influenced by your illusions. But don't worry, when we reach our destination, I'll recommend a good place to you to have a hearty meal. Absorbing fear was one of Misdreavus' ways of growing, and by then, its overall abilities should have improved. Misdreavus nodded in satisfaction. Terence reached out to catch it but missed. Come here. I'm going to explain the principle of Shadow Ball to you. You probably don't know this move yet, right? Terence said. Misdreavus asked. This move, as long as you can control the energy inside your body well, you can learn it right away. 2 days later. Heading towards Veilstone City, Terence noticed a strange person. This person's behavior was very odd, sneaky in appearance but dressed in formal brown attire. No matter how you look at it, it was suspicious. Misdreavus wanted to approach him. Terence quickly stopped it. He knew this little guy wanted to scare people again. Be quiet. Let's not go looking for trouble, let's go around. Terence had little interest in the strange person sneakily hiding behind the rocks. If it weren't for Beautifully, who was practicing moves nearby, detecting the person, Terence might not have even noticed this strange guy. Terence made up his mind and kept a close eye on Misdreavus, the one who makes him the most worried. Crouching down to secretly observe the strange person in the distance, Terence noticed that the person had maintained the same posture for too long. It is indeed strange. Without thinking too much, just as he was about to leave, suddenly. Thump! Thump! First, his heart raced, then he felt a chill creeping over him. Terence was about to get up when he heard a scream from Misdreavus, and then it felt like something was held against his neck. It was a contradictory feeling. Although he felt a rush of cold, there was a burning feeling coming from whatever was in front of his neck. A hissing sound could be heard, making Terence break out in a cold sweat and dare not move. "Hey kid!" Just when Terence was extremely uneasy, a magnetic voice rang out. "Sorry, I made a mistake. Croagunk, let him go." With those words, Terence finally felt his body return to normal and he quickly placed his hand on the pokeballs of Beautifully and the others. Misdreavus, by this time, had flown swiftly to Terence's side, vigilantly staring at the stranger. "Hold on, young man. It's a misunderstanding." The man appeared to be in his early 30s, dressed in light brown attire. Despite his relatively young age, there were streaks of grey in his hair, and he had a classic crew-cut hairstyle. Croagunk. Coming to his senses, Terence finally understood what was in front of his neck. It was a Pokémon with venomous sacs on its cheeks, with a very peculiar appearance. At this moment, its hands were smeared with a white, vaporous poison, making it look quite menacing. This Croagunk was different from any Pokémon Terence had seen before. It exudes an aura only found in Pokémon genuinely bred for battle, distinct from the ones typically trained for battles between trainers. "I'm truly sorry. I felt someone was secretly observing me, and I thought it was those guys." The middle-aged man in the brown coat smiled apologetically. "I almost died." Terence's heart was still pounding. Croagunk's sudden attack left him completely unprepared. If he had made any sudden movements, Croagunk would have used its poisoned hand to strike his neck without hesitation. "Don't worry, I'm not a bad person. Here's my police ID. As you can see, I am a member of the International Police, currently investigating an illegal poaching gang which catches young Pokémon." Seeing the serious expressions on Terence and Misdreavus, the man felt embarrassed and quickly pulled out his ID from his clothes. "I'm sorry for scaring you. This is my partner, Croagunk. Those people are very cunning, and I mistook you for them. You can call me Looker." Terence was feeling a mixture of emotions. What does it have to do with shamelessly calling yourself Looker? Looker's name can also be translated as handsome young man. But speaking of it, if he was a member of the International Police, then it would be understandable. It was all a misunderstanding, a damn misunderstanding. Terence couldn't help but complain inwardly. He had promised himself not to go looking for trouble, but trouble seemed to have found him from the moment Beautifully detected this stranger. "I understand." Terence replied coolly, his voice tinged with a bit of resentment. At the same time, he glanced over in the distance. The brown figure was still lurking behind that rock. It must be a fake. Chapter 78, Looker. A fake. Terence let out a long sigh, he had been outsmarted. You must be a rookie trainer, right? Mr. Looker didn't dwell on the matter for long and quickly changed the topic. This area is very dangerous, you know. This direction, if you're heading to Veilstone City, I suggest you take the normal route. Anyway, this area is very dangerous. Give me your Pokédex, and I'll request assistance from Officer Jenny for you. There might still be Pokémon poachers lurking around here. It's not safe to stay here for long, Looker said solemnly. If a rookie trainer doesn't have any valuable Pokémon with them, it's fine. But if they do, they often become prime targets for Pokémon poachers. Is that so? Thank you, I understand, Terence was taken aback. A poacher, hey? This kind of illegal profession, it seems, is unavoidable in any world. In that case, I'll get back to the safe path. I'll leave the task of apprehending the poachers to you, Mr. Detective. Terence waved and turned to leave. Hey, wait a moment. I'll still request Officer Jenny for help. Besides, Veilstone City is still quite far from here, Looker said, surprised when Terence turned to leave. No need, really. I don't have a Pokédex at the moment, Terence replied with a smile. That, Mr. Looker and Croagunk exchanged puzzled glances, not expecting such an answer from Terence. No, I insist you wait. Hesitating for a moment, Mr. Looker caught up with Terence. It's because of me that those poachers came here. For your safety, I'll make sure to escort you to Veilstone City. Escort me? Terence looked completely bewildered. Yes, if you encounter those poachers, you'd certainly be in danger if you are on your own. But with me around, I can also apprehend them. As for not encountering any, that would be lucky, Mr. Looker explained. Terence strangely looked at the international police officer. Isn't it your mission to apprehend Pokémon poachers? Can you really afford to be delayed because of strangers? Besides, if my presence causes you to miss a chance to catch the poachers, the consequences could be even more severe. Mission? I wouldn't call it that. I'm currently on vacation, and stumbling upon those poachers was purely accidental, Mr. Looker said. Even if the consequences might be severe, that's just speculation. I can't allow someone who may be in danger to face it alone. Terence was rendered speechless. This uncle with a somewhat mocking name, to be honest, Terence was somewhat moved. I am capable of protecting myself, Terence considered for a moment and said. That's where you're mistaken, young man. Maybe your Pokémon are strong, but this isn't a regulated battle. Poachers don't follow any rules. Judging by your lack of awareness earlier, you'd be considered a careless trainer. A careless trainer? Terence carefully pondered these words. Since he started his journey alone, apart from that incident at MT Chimney, it had been smooth sailing, with him encountering no real danger. But the word careless, is he really that bad? Your awareness of danger is lacking. A kid like you wouldn't have made it through the early stages of our detective training, Mr. Looker said seriously. I understand. Misdreavus, the small Misdreavus, couldn't help but laugh when she saw Terence being scolded. You. Black lines appeared on Terence's head. Come with me. I'll bring you to Veilstone City. Terence examined Mr. Looker more closely and realized that this international police officer seemed quite reliable. Were all international police officers this kind-hearted? Terence didn't know. Organizations like the International Police were too distant for him. For a youngster like him, the League Conference and Pokémon Contests were his current highest aspirations. You haven't registered as a trainer in the Pokémon League, have you? Terence, following behind Mr. Looker, suddenly heard him ask. Yes, my family isn't well off, Terence didn't elaborate. The atmosphere remained silent for a few minutes, and the other person slowly spoke again. Hang in there. I've heard some rumors that the League is preparing to again ease the requirements for becoming a trainer. Keep persevering for a few more years, and maybe everything will get better. Without a trainer license, one cannot enjoy the discounts offered by various organizations under the League. For trainers who travel extensively, it's as troublesome as losing an arm. I hope so, Terence nodded. In the 4 years since his journey began, he had seen changes in various places around him. Whether it's food, clothing, shelter, or transportation, Everything was progressing with the development of technology. Sooner or later, the trainer profession will also have its turn. Always be vigilant and aware of your surroundings. This is essential for a trainer when traveling, Mr. Looker advised. Is it appropriate to have your mischievous follow you like this? If it were me, I would have it hide and constantly observe the surroundings from a distance away from you. Terrence's mouth twitched slightly. Do you have to be so cautious? Faced with this question, Mr. Looker almost stumbled. You new generation trainers. He rubbed his head vigorously, seeming to have a headache. So, Mr. Looker, were you a trainer in the past? Yeah, back then, trainers who weren't careful were always in danger. But nowadays, most trainers have grown up in a safe environment and tend to panic when faced with danger, Looker sighed. Maybe it was because he had heard that Terrence didn't have a trainer license, but Mr. Looker seemed to take special care of him, reminding him of many things to be mindful of while in the wilderness. Compared to the knowledge gained from books, the experience shared by an international police officer was more rewarding for Terrence. A few days later, Looker safely escorted Terrence to the outskirts of Veilstone City. He bid farewell to Terrence, preparing to investigate the poacher's situation once again. Even during my vacation, I can't help but want to chase after them, sigh. Looker adjusted his hat and said to Terrence, remember the experiences I shared with you. You might need them one day. Thank you, Mr. Looker, Terrence sincerely said. After spending those few days with Looker, he had truly experienced the charisma of the man. You're a good detective. I wish you all the best in your poacher-catching mission. With a smile, Looker turned away from Terrence's gaze and ventured back into the wilderness. Terrence watched his disappearing figure and suddenly felt a bit down. That uncle isn't so bad, is he? He tapped his pokeballs, and his three companions emerged, expressing their opinions while circling around him. To the north of Veilstone City, facing the sea, there are ships that sail directly to Snowpoint City. Additionally, the surrounding stone walls give the entire city a cold atmosphere. Once Looker's silhouette gradually vanished, Terrence took a step forward, heading towards this big city renowned for its stones. We'll meet again someday. Chapter 79, Returning to Mt. Coronet. Veilstone Department Store is located right in the center of Veilstone City, to the west of the Pokémon Center. This is the main shopping area for trainers in the city. Because this 5-story department store sells all common items, Veilstone City doesn't have the usual Pokemart, as business is completely monopolized by private corporations. The items sold at Veilstone Department Store are varied, but they are neatly categorized. Terrence first ascended to B1F, Food and Produce, and bought raspberries and nutpea berries. These berries are quite common and only mildly beneficial to Pokemon, so they are not expensive, costing around 20 yen each. Terrence still had 4,000 yen left on him. He had inquired about the price of an SS ticket to Snowpoint City beforehand. It costs a total of 1,600 yen, which leaves him with 2,400 yen for shopping. 30 raspberries and 30 nutpea berries cost him 1,200 yen, which would serve as Swablu's dessert for the next month. Next, on 1F, Trainer's Zone, Terrence found some common medicines and items, each priced at around 200 yen. Without lingering here, Terrence quickly climbed to the third floor, Trademark Corner. Terrence found a technical machine for the Move Flash, which was the cheapest one available here, costing only 1,000 yen. However, after careful consideration, he decided against it since there was currently no need for Flash in his team, and Flash technical machine could also be exchanged at the academy. Wasting money here didn't make much sense. Following that, Terrence spotted some evolutionary stones for sale in other areas, but they were expensive and valuable items. He didn't need them at the moment. Afterward, Terrence spent 200 yen on a Hippowdon brand wristwatch, intending to use it for time-specific training in the future. With the remaining 1,000 yen, he planned to buy some personal everyday items, which were not available at the academy. However, there was no rush, and he could purchase them when he reached Snowpoint City. Even though he bought raspberries and nutpea berries, Terrence felt that by this time, the academy had probably received a large shipment of scarce resources, so there was no need to buy too many. It's time to go. With several ship trips under his belt, Terrence had become quite familiar with the process, choosing the boat, purchasing the ticket, and waiting. As of today, it had been 11 days since he left Crown Academy, and he had 3 days left, which was enough time to return to the academy. This time, the ship was not very large, with a capacity of only about 20 people. The sea route from Veilstone City to Snowpoint City was not an easy one, but over the years, there had been no accidents. "Everyone hold tight, there's some strong current up ahead," a crew member called out from the deck to the resting trainers. Beside the crew member, there was also a Machop helping out. "It's a school of Mantine." Terence, who was enjoying the sea breeze on the deck, suddenly heard an exclamation, attracting his attention, but he wasn't the only one who was attracted. Many trainers were stunned by the group of Pokémon swimming alongside the ship. Dozens of Mantine gracefully leaped and leisurely swam in the sea, some of them had Remoraid attached to their fins, feasting on leftover food scraps. However, Mantine's calm demeanor showed that they were not bothered by it. Trainers gazed in awe at the breathtaking sight of the Mantines swimming. Once far from the ship, their swimming speed suddenly increased. They shot up from the waves, gliding for over 100 meters, soaring over the crest of the waves, and effortlessly dropping Remoraid from its body. "So beautiful," exclaimed one trainer. "Ah, I regret it so much. Why didn't I try to catch one with a Pokeball earlier?" someone lamented. "Are you crazy? If you had thrown a Pokeball, our ship wouldn't have been able to leave." The Mantine encounter was just a brief interlude. Amidst the vast blue ocean, the ship continued its journey towards Snowpoint City. During this time, Terence briefly contemplated his next steps upon returning to the academy. In a short while, his Pokémon would need to undergo long-term training, and the next opportunity for a break would have to wait until his first years-long vacation. After the ship arrived at Snowpoint City, Terence purchased some items in the city and headed directly towards Mt. Coronet. With 2 previous experiences of walking this route, Terence had the correct path to the academy engraved in his mind. That Absol is still here. As he passed a hill, Terence spotted the same white Pokémon. They locked eyes, and Absol immediately disappeared from Terence's view. After walking for most of the day, Terence let his tired legs rest for a while and finally saw the large stele of the academy. The large stele bearing the words Crown Academy appeared in his sight, so Crown Academy should be just ahead. After being away for some time, Terence realized the benefits of the academy. Just having a warm meal every day made him deeply appreciative. "In just 1 more month, I'll let Swablu and the others experience the real foundation of the academy. But those places, while they do cost a lot of credits, there are places where I can earn credits as well. As long as I use them wisely, before the end of this semester's break, Swablu and the others should make significant progress. I can see the wall." Terence quickened his pace, eager to rest on the soft bed. As a returning student who had applied to leave, he also needed to register his return and report to the academy. However, the person responsible for Terence's registration was a familiar face, the chubby uncle who had assigned him to a class in the first place. So, not much time was wasted, and Terence completed the formalities. To prevent cheating, students were required to register the Pokémon they held during the enrollment period, and they also had to undergo an assessment. Registering each new Pokémon captured was also mandatory within the academy to ensure fairness in some of the reward policies for students. So, Terence's capture of Misdreavus, along with the little Misdreavus's information, would definitely be recorded in Terence's student file. Teacher Teresa, Teacher Isaac, and Teacher Forrest had actually been away for only half a month. Upon their return, Terence greeted them before returning to his normal academy life. Ralts. Below the dormitory building, Terence once again met Ralts. The moment they met, the little one performed teleport in front of Terence, wanting to show off its progress. This past half-month, Ralts has been practicing teleport continuously. "Terence, your advice meant a lot to Ralts," Azaa, the breeder class student, said to Terence. "Is that so?" "Ralts, you've been working really hard," Terence sighed inwardly. Innate disadvantages meant Ralts would need more time and effort to achieve the same results. In reality, there was no absolute fairness. "Keep it up, Ralts. If you evolve into Kurla, I'll give you a gift," Terence said with a smile as he gently rubbed Ralts' head. "A gift, Terence, are you implying?" Azaa exclaimed in surprise. "Yeah, didn't the other teachers have this idea?" Terence asked. "They did, but that thing is in quite a short supply within the academy, and students need a lot of credits to exchange for it, and, whether Ralts can evolve or not is still uncertain." Azaa's words were disjointed, but Terence understood the gist of it. "I'll find a way." Terence looked at Ralts' determined expression with a serious expression on his face. Chapter 80, Going to Haunted House. If we were to say which types of Pokémon most trainers struggle to deal with, it would definitely be ghost and psychic types. The Haunted House. It is a facility established by the Academy for students to hone their skills. Here, there are Ghastly, Haunter, Jengar, Misdreavus, and Mismagius, as well as Duskull and Dusclops. In short, there are many different types of ghost Pokémon belonging to the teachers and students. Compared to the rarity of ghost-type Pokémon in the outside world, the Haunted House can be considered a feast for ghosts. The Haunted House serves 4 purposes. The first is to train the courage of trainers and Pokémon, to see if they can remain calm in sudden situations and overcome external factors affecting their emotions. The second is to familiarize students and their Pokémon with ghost-type Pokémon, observing their habits up close. The third is to strengthen the willpower of Pokémon. Illusion skills are the specialty of ghost-type Pokémon, some stronger than others. However, if Pokémon and trainers have strong enough willpower, illusions won't affect them. Even if they accidentally enter an illusion, they can break free with their strong willpower. The fourth purpose is to create large illusions simultaneously using several ghost-type Pokémon, simulating various environments and events for students to experience. These meticulously designed illusionary worlds by the Academy have effects that help students grow. It is also called a simulation trial, and students can apply to simulate natural environments such as the ocean, desert, volcano, or even outer space. These environments, simulated by a few ghost-type Pokémon who are proficient in illusion skills, are almost lifelike, down to the point where students can feel temperature and pain. And as of now, no student and their Pokémon have been powerful enough to break free from these high-level illusionary worlds. Moreover, in these illusionary worlds, students can also experience battles with legendary Pokémon. Gym, Elite Four, and even the champions, although there might be differences in strength, Pokémon trained by the Academy are also working hard to digest the battle videos of these big shots. They can simulate illusions to provide simulated battle training for students. Building courage and overcoming fear are regular tests that students and their Pokémon must undergo. On the other hand, simulating trials in the illusionary worlds requires a lot of effort from several ghost-type Pokémon to create them realistically. If students want to challenge a legendary Pokémon or battle with some Elite Four or champion, these illusionary worlds are indispensable and require a substantial amount of credits to exchange for opportunities. After Terrence captured Misdreavus, he promised it that it would have enough fear emotions to enjoy in the future, and it was naturally not empty talk. Every student at Crown Academy must pass a certain test in the Haunted House. Additionally, when they capture new Pokémon, they also come to the Haunted House to experience the battling style of ghost-type Pokémon. For Misdreavus, the Haunted House is the perfect place to obtain fear. Furthermore, there are many mischievous ghost-type Pokémon inside, so it wouldn't feel lonely. With so many like-minded friends, it can even entertain itself, making it an excellent place for Misdreavus. After he was done with his work, Terrence contacted the teacher responsible for the Haunted House and who also take care of these ghost-type Pokémon, requesting that Misdreavus be allowed to join the Haunted House. The male teacher had long, purple hair, and perhaps due to spending too much time with ghost-type Pokémon, he looked rather eerie. "Is this the Misdreavus?" he asked in a raspy voice. "Yes, it's my new partner," Terrence replied, "and if possible, I'd like to have it join Illusion Masters. This little one has a talent for illusions, and there's plenty of room for improvement." Staring at the lively little Misdreavus, the teacher pondered for a moment. "This will require a test. Anyway, let me see its talent for illusions first." Misdreavus turned its head and looked at Terrence. "Go ahead and use the move you are best at, give it your all," Terrence said. Upon hearing this, the little Misdreavus displayed a delighted expression. It could finally scare someone again. It slyly looked at the purple-haired teacher, circled around a few times, and its red pearls and eyes simultaneously lit up, unleashing its Confuse Ray move. The next moment, the purple-haired teacher closed his eyes, and the little Misdreavus struck a victorious pose. However, just a few seconds later, the teacher stretched lazily and mumbled, "It's decent. Considering its age, there's a lot of room for improvement. If it spends some time with the ghost-type Pokémon in the Haunted House, it might make significant progress and have a chance to join Illusion Masters." "Is that it?" Terrence was surprised and looked at Misdreavus with a concerned expression. He felt sorry for Misdreavus for a few seconds. Illusions seemed to have little effect on this teacher. As he watched Misdreavus's defeated expression, Terrence recalled the process where he and Rancher were easily deceived by the little Misdreavus, feeling a bit embarrassed. Indeed, Being the academy teacher in charge of the haunted house, he seemed to really have his own method to deal with ghost-type Pokémon. What about the time? How would you like to arrange it? The teacher asked. Not only Terence, but many students who owned ghost-type Pokémon also wished to have their Pokémon join the haunted house. If their Pokémon worked hard and became a member of Illusion Masters, they would receive regular credit rewards. During the student trials, Misdreavus will be on full duty. If not, Misdreavus will return 1 day a week, and I'll need to record its progress, Terence replied. This was what he had discussed with Misdreavus. No problem, the teacher said. I'm Mayo. From now on, you can call me Teacher Mayo. You can consider yourself contracted with the haunted house. If your Misdreavus gains approval and becomes a member of Illusion Masters, you'll also receive some credit rewards. Thank you, Teacher Mayo, Terence said. That's okay. It's my duty. By the way, you're a breeder class student, right? It seems you haven't visited the haunted house yet. Do you have any interest in trying it? This time, it's free, Teacher Mayo suggested. Hearing that, Terence chuckled in embarrassment. I'll pass for now. I'll visit when I have some free time. Upon further thought, the haunted house did seem to have some benefits for students and their Pokémon. However, Terence, who had just returned to Crown Academy, was currently not in the mood to challenge the haunted house at the moment. But if he had time in the future, it might be a good opportunity to strengthen his courage and willpower. Don't slack off. It's time to show your skills. It would be embarrassing if you can't become a member of Illusion Masters, Terence instructed Misdreavus. Chapter 81, Challenging the Tower of Confusion. In addition to the haunted house, there were many similar places within the academy. Sunlight House, a place where Sunny Day is maintained 24 hours a day, allows grass-type Pokémon to practice their moves freely and quickly recover their strength. If Terence allows Beautifully to stay inside for a day, it can easily comprehend Solar Beam. Gravity Room, operated by several Probopass, allows the gravity inside to be freely adjusted, making it very effective for training specific Pokémon. However, using the move Gravity consumes a significant amount of energy for Probopass, so activating it requires a substantial number of credits. It's a holy land for fighting-type Pokémon. Large Power Room, constantly supplying power to electric-type Pokémon. In addition to this, there were also places suitable for Pokémon of various types, which can quickly enhance the strength of students' Pokémon. Although the required credits were expensive, if students are willing to work hard, they can completely earn them from the academy. Daily tests. Promotion exams. Rankings. Training results. Missions. In addition to this, the academy has several special places where students can earn credits as rewards. It can be said that as long as the students work hard enough and push themselves hard, although they may not be able to earn a large amount of credits, 4 years is enough to perfect a team and make themselves rich. However, most of the students who can enter Crown Academy come from wealthy families, and few are willing to endure such hardships. They may be willing to pay for resources, but they are not willing to work hard to obtain them. But little do they know that the true growth of Pokémon and trainers is reflected in the process of hard work. So, it is not a problem for the academy to cultivate several outstanding trainers with its foundation, but the key is that without the corresponding temperament and effort, it is very difficult for trainers to grow thoroughly. This is also why there was not a single student in the entire academy who was able to challenge Cynthia. Students like Terence, who come from humble backgrounds, have increased in number in the past 2 years, mainly because some of the teachers who go out have carefully observed and sought out trainers who are steadfast, earnest, hardworking, and ambitious, or children with dreams and determination. For these students, the academy has very lenient policies. As long as one of these students can become an Elite 4 level figure in a region in the future, the investment is worthwhile. Currently, what the academy lacks is not funds but talent and corresponding fame. After arranging things for Misdreavus, Terence began the final work of 1 month-long reaction training for Beautifully and Swablu. At the same time, he also looked after Ralts. Having practiced teleport alone for half a month, Terence also needed to see Ralts' progress in practice. 8 steel balls continuously attacked Swablu with a 5-star attack trajectory. Currently, Agility and Cotton Guard are Swablu's main ways of evading attacks. Beautifully continued to practice the airflow control of Gust and Tailwind during training. As for Ralts, the steel ball training posed the greatest challenge for it because once Terence commanded Nosepass not to attack simultaneously, the effectiveness of Ralt's teleport greatly reduced. So, while dodging the steel balls, Ralts had to plan on its own, find the most suitable landing points, calculate the timing, and strive to maximize the effectiveness of teleport. Terrence's job was to take his laptop and record the growth of these Pokémon, making plans for the next training session. 1 month later, Terrence looked at the remaining 498 credits and felt that he should do something. Looking at the growth data sheets of Beautifully, Swablu, and Misdreavus after a month of solitary training, Terrence prepared to undertake some real combat missions. Considering the current status of Beautifully and Swablu, Nosepass couldn't keep up with their progress, and the Steel Ball training came to an end. During this period, Beautifully and Swablu had gained exceptional evasion skills, and their endurance and ability to withstand damage had also improved. What surprised Terrence was Ralts. Although it only knew one move, teleport, its effort was no less than that of Beautifully and others, and it even worked harder. However, it was a pity that aside from becoming more proficient with teleport, Ralts showed no other changes. Terrence wanted his Pokémon to engage in real battles, and aside from some special missions, the Academy offered 3 excellent choices. First, Student Battle Zone. Second, Tower of Confusion. Third, Tower of Despair. Considering the states of Swablu and Beautifully, Terrence chose the Tower of Confusion. Students had the opportunity to challenge the Tower of Confusion once every 6 months for free, and Terrence had one such opportunity, including the new students' free quota. If there is no free quota, students could also challenge it by spending credits. Compared to the cumbersome procedures of the Student Battle Zone and the extremely difficult Tower of Despair, the Tower of Confusion was better suited for Swablu and Beautifully at the moment. As for little Misdreavus, it was currently mingling with the Pokémon in the haunted house, living quite a comfortable life. Terrence was currently letting it do whatever it wanted. Academy spent a lot of effort in establishing the Tower of Confusion, and its purpose was to help trainer students' Pokémon face themselves, challenge themselves, and discover their strengths and advantages. Tower of Confusion was guarded by Ditto. In theory, there was no limit to the number of levels. Students frequently challenged the Tower of Confusion, but it was never too busy. That's because dozens of Ditto were raised here, and countless battles had sharpened the combat awareness of each Ditto. Tower of Confusion was fitted with numerous cameras that could record the students' challenges from all angles. Challenger. A vigorous voice sounded behind Terrence, coming from a thin old man. I'm in charge of the Tower of Confusion, and all challenge matters are registered with me. It seems like you are a new student here for your first challenge, right? Yes, new student, Terrence replied. Well, the quality of this year's new students seems pretty good. I hope you can give me a nice surprise and clear the first level, the man shook his head. The first level? Terrence was puzzled. Isn't the first level just a battle against one Ditto? Does it sound easy to you? Even so, in the history of Crown Academy, there were very few new students who could successfully challenge the first level on their first attempt. These trainers often challenge it recklessly without understanding their own Pokémon. Especially when facing a Pokémon that the Ditto transforms into, which they believe they know well. Underestimating it, they often return in defeat. Since you're a new student, let me remind you, if you're not adequately prepared, it might be better to come back next time. No. I'm sure I want to challenge it, Terrence said. Chapter 82, Entering the Tower. Then, Terrence followed the person in charge of the Tower of Confusion to register. Terrence currently has 1 try of free challenge, as indicated by his student ID card. My name is Lucas, a retired old man. Unlike the earlier indifference, as Terrence walked a few steps with this elderly teacher, he discovered the other's true nature. If you can pass the first level, you're considered a decent student. If you can pass the second level, you're considered outstanding among students. And if you can leave a mark on the 4th level, only the top students from the graduation class can achieve that. Although there is no limit to the number of levels in the Tower of Confusion, the best performance among the Academy's students so far has only been lasting for a while on the 4th level. Hey, wait a moment, you're a breeder class student. While registering, teacher Lucas unconsciously glanced at Terrence's information and was momentarily surprised. Student from the breeder class, did you come here to cause trouble? Unlike trainers from the battle class, everyone's impression of breeders is that they are not good at battles, mainly because they spend most of their time studying theoretical knowledge. At the Tower of Confusion, challengers are mostly trainers and coordinators, with few breeders who have limited combat experience. What else could Terence say? He could only reaffirm his determination. Not bad, not bad. You've got the same spirit as I did in my younger days. Have you seen this record? I lasted 2 minutes and 9 seconds on the 4th level. That's my record from back in the day. Impressive, right? And this one? That's also my achievement. Black lines appeared on Terence's face. Take a good look at the new students who enrolled this year. They can hold their own in battles on the 1st level. As a new student, that's quite rare. If you can outperform them, as your senior, I wouldn't mind giving you some guidance. At that time, me, and my Honchkrow and Claydol were nightmares of all students. Many female students also admired me. Ah, I'm getting old, memories. I plan to have my Swablu challenge. Please register, Terence said. Why the rush? You young people are too impatient. Teacher Lucas was quite displeased with Terence's attitude and reprimanded him, saying, this record board contains the achievements of several generations of students. If you can leave your name on it, there will be some credits as a reward. But you shouldn't even think about this. Only the graduation class students can leave their names on it. You're too early for that. Besides that, for each level you pass, you can also receive some credits as a reward. Your current focus should be on challenging and passing the 1st level. Excuse me. Is anyone here? Just as Terence was receiving Teacher Lucas's earnest advice, a voice came from outside, causing Terence to breathe a sigh of relief. Ah, who is it? Wait a moment, aren't you the boy with curly eyebrows who came by last time? Teacher Lucas looked out the window, squinted his eyes, and said in surprise after a moment of thought. I remember you challenged just a month ago, right? Don't call me curly eyebrows. My name is Valor. The boy with curly eyebrows said with anger. I've gathered 50 credits and want to challenge again. You're wasting it, boy. These are a badge's worth of credits. Teacher Lucas looked at the young man as if he were a fool. Don't waste time talking. I want to challenge it. As long as I pass the 1st level, I can double my credits. I really can't do anything with you. Last time, you couldn't even last for 3 minutes, and you think it's so easy to pass. After sighing, Teacher Lucas reluctantly said, in that case, the two of you can go together. At this moment, Valor noticed Terence. In contrast to his earlier mood, he patted his chest and politely said, Hello, I'm Valor, a new student of the speed battle class. Hello, I'm Terence, a new student of the breeder class, Terence replied. Breeder class? You're a breeder? Valor exclaimed. Wait a minute. Terence, this should be your first time challenging the Tower of Confusion, right? Come a bit closer, let me tell you something. After completing the challenge, you must leave this place immediately. Otherwise, this Teacher Lucas will definitely drag you into hearing about his glorious exploits in his youth. I learned this lesson through pain and suffering. Whatever you do, don't listen to his stories. Otherwise, he'll keep you entangled for half the day, especially this old bachelor. He loves showing off his youthful escapades with female students. Terence raised an eyebrow. This was quite serious and he detested nothing more than chatterboxes. Thank you for the reminder, I'll keep that in mind. Are you two whispering about something secretly? Teacher Lucas, who was registering information, looked suspicious. No, both of them raised their heads with a blank expression, staring at the ceiling. Tower of Confusion. With new challengers, the Tower of Confusion was reopened, and the Ditto responsible for guarding the levels took their positions. Teacher Lucas held a laptop that was connected to the tower. After giving some instructions, he informed Terence and Valor that they could go up. Terence held Swablu's Pokeball and walked into the tower calmly, while Valor appeared more nervous in comparison. Terence, be careful later. Ditto's fighting style might be different from our Pokémon. Got it. You give it your best shot too. The best record among the Academy's students in the Tower of Confusion so far was lasting a while on the 4th level while facing attacks from 4 Ditto. In contrast, passing the 1st level and defeating 1 Ditto wouldn't be too difficult for experienced trainers. The 1st level could be considered the basics of the basics. If you are a trainer who can collect all 8 gym badges, there was no reason you couldn't pass. But starting from the 2nd level, facing attacks from 2 Ditto at the same time increased the pressure instantly. Similarly, the 3rd level has 3 Ditto, and the 4th level has 4 Ditto. In recent years, within the 4-year academy curriculum, no student had managed to challenge the 5th level. As you progress in the challenge, relying solely on brute force won't get you far. You must consider tactical choices and make the most of your Pokémon's strengths. Although Ditto can change the composition of their cells and mimic the composition of any object they copy, thereby transforming into the appearance of anything they see, and even mimicking the opponent's moves, fundamentally, no matter how perfect their transformation, they can never fully copy the unique ability of every Pokémon. This Tower of Confusion, the Academy had put a lot of thought into it. This guy. Watching Valor next to him, clenching his fists nervously yet determined and somewhat anxious, Terence was at a loss for words. The first level of the Tower of Confusion had numerous rooms, interconnected with places where Ditto resided. Terence recalled the reputation of Crown Academy, and its foundation was indeed well deserved. It was truly a trainer's holy land 100 years ago when the Pokémon League was not yet fully established. Even in its current state of decline, it was not something a gym's foundation could compare to. However, it was hard to imagine that graduation class students who could pass the third level were still not a match for Cynthia. No wonder Crown Academy's fame wasn't prominent. Compared to a true prodigy of a region, even if it has a foundation, it was still lacking in some aspects. I wonder, which level I can reach. Chapter 83, Balancing and Head Start. When Terence and Valor entered the first level of the Tower of Confusion, Teacher Lucas finally started paying serious attention to his notebook screen. Valor, new student, current score, 1 challenge attempt, recorded defeat on the first level in 2 minutes and 51 seconds. Terence, new student, currently, no score. Still Murkrow, hey. Lucas had saved all the videos related to the Tower of Confusion and, with just a quick investigation, found Valor's previous challenge record. 1 month ago, Valor, the new student of the Speed Battle class, had failed in his attempt to challenge the first level of the Tower of Confusion using Murkrow. A month later, he was once again using Murkrow for the challenge. Tien, I am confused about this class name or what class this is. So, I will for now leave it as is. And I will also change the name of Valor's class in the last chapter. Last time, it was due to mistakes in the commands he gave that he lost. I hope he has improved this time. As for this Terence, a breeder class student, right? Swablu, seems to be a Pokémon that lives in the Hone region. Teacher Lucas was responsible for monitoring the Tower of Confusion and taking care of the Ditto here, naturally bearing the responsibility of witnessing the student's growth. If any student displayed outstanding performance, video footage would need to be further sent to the higher UPS at the Academy. At this moment, Valor, facing the Ditto transformed into Murkrow, took a deep breath. Come on, even though it looks exactly like Murkrow and knows the same moves, there must be differences. Besides, I'm here to give it commands. I can't make a mistake this time. I must pass the first level. On the other side, Terence also faced the guardian of the first level, a pale purple, gooey Pokémon, Ditto. Please give me guidance. Terence sent out Swablu, which had undergone extensive training over time and had been eagerly anticipating real combat for a long while. Upon seeing Swablu, as expected, Ditto transformed into Swablu. From the outside, the two of them looked almost identical. Swablu seemed curious about this transformation and looked at Swablu in astonishment, its fighting spirit ignited. He looked at the countdown on the background of the room. According to Teacher Lucas' warning, who used to previously guard the tower, the challenge will officially begin when the countdown reaches 0. 12. 11. 9. 5. 3. 2. 1. Just as the countdown reached 0, Terence gave the command, Dragon Pulse. Lucas had always believed that breeders were not skilled in battles. Having lived for half of his life, he had encountered many breeders. They might excel at grooming Pokémon's outside appearance, handling their fatigue and injuries, or even proficient in crafting Pokémon food, but being proficient in both breeding and battles was a rare combination. If I recall correctly, that trainer named Cynthia seems to be an intermediate breeder. At this moment, nearly everyone in the Crown Academy knew about Cynthia. Regarding this female trainer who had trampled on the dignity of Crown Academy, everyone has mixed feelings. On one hand, there was the bitterness of being a loser, and on the other hand, there was admiration for her talent. This kid. Originally, Lucas didn't have high expectations for Terence's battle abilities. After all, he was only 10 years old. Most students who have just gotten in contact with Pokémon wouldn't find it easy to defeat the experienced Ditto. However, Terrence's arrival immediately shattered the perspective of Lucas, who has been guarding the tower for years. Trainer? No, that's not it. Lucas realized that Terrence's combat style, although a bit raw, wasn't that of a complete novice. At most, he was someone who hadn't had enough battles to fully display his abilities. In other words, he lacked experience. This fighting style. He's a new student from breeder class. Terrence's rhythmic and planned commanding style, as well as his coordination with Swablu, didn't seem like something a rookie trainer possessed. It was more like they had been long-time friends facing challenges together. This is the battle style of the coordination class. Lucas looked somewhat surprised. Does he want to dabble in both breeding and coordination? Is it greed, or does he have enough confidence in himself? A single person's energy is ultimately limited. Even if just being a breeder, they will still find one path among many that suits them. Not to mention, trying to balance breeding, coordination, and battling. From Terrence, Lucas unexpectedly saw shades of Cynthia. He just didn't know that, since 4 years ago when Terrence was only 6 years old, he had already embarked on his unique journey with a mindset and knowledge that differed from his peers due to him coming from the information explosion era. This was Terrence's biggest gold finger. His head start was high, and there would be more time ahead to perfect his path. After some time passed, inside the Tower of Confusion, Valor displayed a delighted expression because he had won. Victory is within reach as long as you have a clear understanding of your Pokémon. Seeing Valor pass the first level, Lucas shifted his attention and activated the staircase leading to the second level. Meanwhile, on Terrence's side, Lucas squinted his eyes. He had a feeling that even though Terrence and Swablu could have quickly defeated their opponent, they chose not to and were enjoying the battle. Is the warm-up over? Terrence asked. Huff, huff, huff. In the next moment, a bluish-purple flame erupted from Swablu, unleashing the Dragon Rush move. On the other side, the Ditto-transformed Swablu also used Dragon Rush. That is, Lucas watched the scene in the video and was stunned. The collision of the two powerful moves he had anticipated had been dodged by the real Swablu with a single dodge. Driven by tremendous inertia, Ditto shot out, colliding head-on with the sturdy wall along with Dragon Rush. Staring at the real Swablu, which had forcibly halted its movement, Lucas displayed an astonished expression. Using its control over its own move to lure the opponent into losing their combat capability, this Swablu has pretty good control over its moves. Ditto crashed into the wall, its eyes swirling with stars, and it transformed back into Ditto with dizziness. Click! Just as Swablu returned to Terrence's side, a door in the room opened. It was the staircase leading to the second level. The first level. Terrence never considered that he would lose. Even if Ditto is experienced, it was only in terms of battle consciousness. When it came to Swablu's moves, it could only instinctively copy them. However, compared to Swablu, who had practiced a particular move for a long time, Ditto, who was temporarily imitating the moves, could never deal with it no matter what. As long as you grasp the strengths of your own Pokémon and amplify them, the first level wasn't difficult for the students. The second level. Facing two Dittos simultaneously. The pressure on the second level had suddenly increased compared to the first. Terrence, of course, wouldn't just give up. This rare opportunity for Swablu to gain real battle experience, especially against its own kind, was an extremely valuable experience. Come on! Cheering on Swablu, Terrence began to make his way to the second level. Swablu's advantages currently lay in its evasion skills, honed over time, and its control over certain moves. The Dragon-type talent it took pride in didn't offer much to brag about when it was perfectly copied by Ditto. With only these two advantages, whether Terrence could successfully lead Swablu through the second level was unknown. Chapter 84, Stopping on the third level. 1 minute, impressive progress. Lucas observed Valor being attacked by two Murkrow and acknowledged his progress. In just 1 month, not only had Valor passed the first level but also managed to hold out for 1 minute on the second level. It seemed he had figured something out. He's coming out. Under the attacks of two Murkrow, Valor's Murkrow ultimately lacked the strength to defeat them. After continuous guerrilla warfare, it was still defeated in the end. Nevertheless, this achievement was considered good among the new students. Great, I passed the first level! Valor exclaimed with excitement as he emerged from the Tower of Confusion, feeling full of energy. First level reward, 100 credits. Next, as long as he could pass the second level, that's 200 credits, the third level is 400 credits, all the way to the 4th level, and there are credit rewards for breaking the previous records too. I'll aim to challenge the 2nd level before advancing to the intermediate class. Valor, who was feeling quite pleased inside, suddenly saw Teacher Lucas looking at him with a smiling expression, which sent a shiver down his spine. I've passed the 1st level, but I've got something to do, so I'll be on my way. He realized things were getting bad, hastily shouted, and ran away. As for the credit rewards, they would naturally be credited to him. Seeing this, Teacher Lucas' smile faded. Students these days. Saying that, he shifted his attention to Terence, saying, let's see how he performs. I might need to have a conversation with him later. Coordinator, Breeder, does he have a clear choice in his mind? On the 2nd level of the Tower of Confusion, Swablu found itself in a tough battle. At this point, under the attacks of 2 Ditto, it had already defeated one opponent, but just dealing with this one opponent had drained all its strength. Now, facing the other Ditto, Swablu's disadvantage was finally becoming apparent. Not enough stamina. Terence watched Swablu struggling and made his judgment. Swablu was just one step away from passing the 2nd level, and that step required better stamina management and accumulation. For Swablu, who had been born for less than a year, stamina was one of its weaknesses. If it had enough stamina and relied on skills, it might have a chance to pass the 2nd level. Terence shook his head. He should stop here. Swablu's journey from the 1st level to this point was already remarkable. The next time Swablu challenged the tower, it would start from the 2nd level, which should make it easier. The 2nd level is essentially only passable by the main force of students who have undergone a year of study. As for passing the 3rd level, within the academy, it's mostly only achievable by the outstanding students of the graduation class. Terence was well aware of his strength. His chances of winning depended on having a relatively small gap in strength between boy sides and relying on his dazzling techniques. In a real battle, not to mention Cynthia, even if you were to randomly pick a student from the advanced class, they could give the current Terence a very tough time. The Pokémon these people have, besides the starter Pokémon with good potential, some of them even have a full team of fully evolved ones. Terence challenging them with just Swablu and Beautifully, is still too early for him. It's okay, there's still time. Aiming to reach the level of top 3 in the league conference in less than a year, unless it's purely luck, it might be a bit of wishful thinking, Terence chuckled. You are finally out. Teacher Lucas' lips slightly parted as he looked at Terence in disbelief. This guy not only easily passed the 1st level but also defeated one opponent on the 2nd level and lasted nearly 5 minutes against another Ditto? I must advise him to focus all his efforts on being a trainer. Teacher Lucas made up his mind. Being a breeder was a waste of time, trying to balance both would definitely hinder Terence's growth. Again, Terence looked at Teacher Lucas. Even though Valor had warned him, he didn't leave right away. What? Lucas stared at him in confusion. I want to challenge the Tower of Confusion again, this time with my Beautifully. It's 50 credits, right? If you include the 100 credit reward for the 1st level, I should still be able to earn 50 credits. If I manage to pass the 2nd level next, there will be a reward of 250 credits, Terence mumbled to himself, ignoring Lucas's astonished expression. Wait a minute, isn't Swablu your starter Pokémon? Teacher Lucas looked puzzled. The seamless coordination between Terence and Swablu clearly indicated a deep bond. If Swablu wasn't Terence's starter Pokémon, he couldn't believe it no matter what. No, Beautifully is my first Pokémon, Terence replied naturally. Lucas. The rewards of the Tower of Confusion are calculated based on the student's ID information, not on the number of Pokémon who have passed through it. Even if Beautifully passed the 1st level again after Swablu, there would be no credit reward. However, if a student wanted to challenge with a new Pokémon, they had to start from the 1st level again. So, the reward system at the Tower of Confusion. Lucas had seen normal students challenge it with their strongest Pokémon only. Strange students like Terence were exceedingly rare. Is the registration complete? I'm going in. Swablu didn't suffer any injuries in the previous battle, it was just a bit tired. Terence exchanged a greeting and then took Beautifly's Pokeball. Under the astonished gaze of Teacher Lucas, he initiated a new round of the Tower of Confusion. 15 minutes later. Terence, under Teacher Lucas' gaze which was as if he was looking at a monster, suddenly bolted away. Having completed the challenge and not intending to do it again, Terence remembered Valor's advice and immediately ran off. Beautifully had accumulated a wealth of experience over time, so it performed much better than Swablu. Its exceptional ability to sense the changes in the air currents was something that Ditto couldn't replicate solely through transformation. It was a skill that required long hours of practice and refinement. So, with this advantage, Beautifully easily breezed through the first level, the second level, and even managed to endure for over 3 minutes in the third level. For the next while, I won't have much interaction with the Tower of Confusion. Terence happily ran away with Swablu and Beautifully, earning 250 credits as a reward. Currently, he has reached his limit here at the Tower of Confusion. Now I have over 700 credits. Sunlight House. An environment maintained in a perpetual sunny day state by several Pokémon skilled in the move Sunny Day. Many students place their grass-type Pokémon inside. The price was 5 credits for an hour. For a whole day, that was 120 credits, an exaggerated price. However, because this place is so beneficial for the growth of grass-type Pokémon, there are almost always students' grass-type Pokémon being raised here for training, which forces them to maintain a high-frequency sunny day state. This also causes the Pokémon responsible for using Sunny Day to consume a significant amount of energy. Chapter 85, Untitled. 8 hours. Terence reserved 8 hours in Sunlight House, costing 40 credits, to allow Beautifully to complete the final step of learning Solar Beam. Beautifully had already mastered all the techniques related to sun, but due to its species, it didn't possess the same affinity for sunlight as grass-type Pokémon. The techniques had been trained almost to perfection, and Terence no longer intended to reserve more time for Beautifully. There were many other training projects to focus on, and Solar Beam had become secondary. In Sunlight House, grass-type Pokémon with the synthesis ability can recover well even after extreme training, as Sunlight House always maintains the sunny day state. Although Beautifully is not a grass-type Pokémon, its move Morning Sun has also reached perfection. In the sunny day state, it quickly harnesses the intense sunlight to learn Solar Beam. Following that, it restores its energy with Morning Sun and practices this move endlessly, striving to maximize its training benefits during the 8-hour period in the Sunlight House. On the other side, after sending Beautifully into the Sunlight House, Terence began heading back to his dorm. He took out his laptop, where he had recorded the important plans for the next phase. 1. Teach Swablu a mirror move and engage in physical training. 2. Study. 3. Evolve Nosepass into Probopass. 4. Evolve Ralts into Curla. The first and second mission can be done simultaneously. Swablu hasn't learned mirror move mainly because its brain's memory capacity hasn't matured yet. Buying a month's supply of raspberries and nutpea berries as post-meal treats won't be enough. For regular meals, it's essential to aim for at least one brain-boosting meal per day. Multank's milk, Pokémon food made from beans, and, ideally, some fish every day. Terence wasn't very confident about the intermediate breeder exam, so studying had to continue. The Crown Academy's database contains limitless knowledge waiting for Terence to learn. Studying would have to be interspersed with the free time dedicated for training Pokémon. As for the task of raising Nosepass into Probopass, which was entrusted to him by the student AJ, there was still more than 3 months left. Terence felt that it wouldn't be long before this mission could be perfectly completed. If Terence wasn't stingy with Nosepass's food, as he had been providing them with cheap magnets that can be found all over MT Coronet, their evolution might even happen earlier. However, the credits for this mission only allowed Terence to provide this level of food. After all, 5 months is ample time, and there was no need to rush. Ralts. This unexpected little one who intruded into Terence's training mission has a unique charm. Ralts' attitude of refusing to be underestimated and diligently practicing alone struck a chord with Terence, bringing back memories of his own childhood. Due to being an orphan, it was inevitable that he would be teased by the brats around him. To disguise himself, he could only throw himself into certain things, trying to prove himself through hard work. Terence sees a reflection of himself in Ralts. Mischievous. Because it was the weekend, Terence had brought this mischievous little one back. Inside the haunted house, Mischievous seemed to be living quite comfortably, leading Terence to notice that it was rather picky about the snacks he had prepared, seemingly favoring only emotions of fear. Eat it all. Terence helplessly placed the carefully prepared food in front of it, pretending to sound stern. Clearly, it was Pokémon food that ghost-type Pokémon also loved, but in his own Mischievous case, it seemed not to like it very much. Mischievous. Little Mischievous looked at the snacks prepared by Terence with disgust, its eyes shifting around. If only it was half as well behaved as Beautifully and Swablu. Terence sighed. If you don't like the snacks, then show me what you've learned this week. It seemed like Miss Drevis had been waiting for Terence to say this. Upon hearing it, Miss Drevis became excited and quickly formed a purple energy ball in front of its red beaded chain. Just one. Terence emphasized. Miss Drevis. Miss Drevis looked puzzled. Hey! I'm talking to you. Didn't you learn how to use Shadow Ball like half a month ago? The training tasks I left for you, have you really been completing them seriously? Terence sighed and rubbed his head in frustration. While fooling around with the ghost-type Pokémon in the haunted house, Miss Drevis's innate talent isn't too bad, and it managed to learn Shadow Ball while fooling around along the way. Afterward, he assigned Miss Drevis a training task focused on energy control, aiming to reduce the energy of Shadow Ball and split it into multiple parts, allowing for quickly unleashing multiple Shadow Balls. Compared to Swablu and Beautifly's training, Terence had been quite lenient with the recently obtained Miss Drevis. Training energy control techniques, it's not really a difficult task, as long as one is willing to spend time exploring. Basically, any Pokémon can master it on their own. But it seemed that Terence had underestimated Miss Drevis' mischievous and lazy nature. So you're telling me that this past week, apart from slightly speeding up the formation of Shadow Ball, you haven't done anything else? Terence locked eyes with Miss Drevis' innocent red eyes. After a moment, Miss Drevis whimpered and ran away, leaving Terence frustrated. He quickly followed, resulting in a comical chase. During the chase, Terence spotted teacher Teresa watering the plants and offered her a smile to hide his embarrassment. Then he continued with Swablu to look for Miss Drevis. Ralts, lend me a hand. This wasn't the first time such a situation had occurred. Terence had already found Miss Drevis' nemesis. By allowing Ralts to sense the emotions around it, Miss Drevis' unique fluctuations were like a light bulb in the darkness, impossible to escape Ralts' perception. Terence approached quietly like a cat, and with a wave from Swablu, the cotton feathers swarmed around Miss Drevis. At that moment, Terence swiftly took out the Ultra Ball and collected Miss Drevis. Inside the room, Terence once again locked eyes with Miss Drevis' innocent red eyes. Terence let out a long sigh. On this weekend, both you and Swablu will learn sound techniques, and strive to use sound to simulate the flow of energy in your body. Miss Drevis. Little Miss Drevis obediently nodded, but Terence wasn't sure if it had actually understood him. Not only Miss Drevis, but even Beautifully needed to learn sound techniques from Swablu. This would help them understand other sound-based moves. In addition, Swablu had another task, which was to learn Mirror Move. It involves watching trainers' battle videos with Terence. Whether it was the Lily of the Valley Conference or any other competition, Terence needed Swablu to have ideas and impressions of various types of moves. While watching these videos, Terence once again marveled at the intense battles between orthodox trainers, which gave him a fiery feeling that was hard to describe. This was different from the tightly interwoven battles of coordinators, the head-on collisions of moves, the surging commands of trainers. When Swablu and Terence saw the exciting moments, their emotions couldn't help but get stirred up. Chapter 86, North Lake. Training, learning, and pushing forward. The monotonous and repetitive academy life lasted for over a month. Academy's training journey? Terence, who had initially rejected it, found himself compelled to join this time. Because the Nosepass were on the brink of evolution, and he needed to find a place with a stronger magnetic field to stimulate their evolution. Doing so meant Terence had to leave the towering walls of Crown Academy. However, the prospect of successfully applying for another outing seemed unlikely to Terence, given that students were not permitted to venture out alone. So, he had to resort to the alternative option of participating in the Academy's training journey in a team format. These training journeys were usually led by graduation class students. In case there were no senior students available, teachers would guide the lower grade students through the exploration of MT Coronet. Within a lakeside corridor classroom at Crown Academy, a mature-looking young man sighed. I never expected that there would be 2 breeder class students who would sign up for the training journey. We'll have to take care of them during the training journey. Who takes care of whom isn't certain yet, a beautiful female student remarked, pursing her lips. Haha. So, it's just the 4 of us now? The other 3 are a bit slow, a student with spiky hair noted. We still have 10 minutes until the agreed time, the last student, who appeared more composed, replied. As the 4 conversed, a student with green hair walked over slowly. They all froze upon seeing him. Missanji. He also accepted the training journey's mission. Missanji, a graduation class student from the Hone region. Crown Academy was established in Sinnoh's MT Coronet. While the majority of students are native Sinnoh trainers, there are also a few from the Hone, Unova, and even more distant regions. Missanji's academic experience at Crown Academy is quite unique. Despite having a complete team, he rarely sends out any other Pokémon if the matter can be handled by his Sceptile. Whether it's the advancement exams, battles, or anything else, he always sends out Sceptile first. He has a special attachment to Sceptile, and over time, quite a few people have formed an impression of this unique student. Is everyone here? Just then, an orange-haired girl student also arrived, surveyed the scene, and asked. We're missing one person. Seeing a girl among them, the beautiful female student immediately approached her with enthusiasm. I'm Yuko from the battle class. You must be Orange from the breeder class, right? Yes. Orange, the breeder class student, responded calmly without much elaboration. Yuko smiled faintly. The breeder class students were quite easy to identify, and she had some understanding of Orange's personality. Hey, look, the last person is here too. The student with spiky hair beamed. With everyone present, they should be able to set out soon. Terence was the last to arrive, and he had all his Pokémon with him, ready to take on the MT Coronet's training journey. Why is it him? Oran from the breeder class scrutinized carefully and couldn't help but mutter. Orange, he should be a fellow breeder class student, right? Is there a problem? Yuko asked, puzzled. No, Oran glanced over, not recognizing him as this new student had not attended a single class since transferring in the middle of the year. Looks like everyone's here. Terence arrived at the meeting point, checked his watch, and realized he was right on time. With that thought, he no longer felt guilty about being the last one to arrive. Crown Academy wasn't large, and among the 7 people present, there were a few familiar faces, or at least acquaintances. For this training journey, there were 2 graduation class students who will lead the team, 1 advanced class student, 2 intermediate class students, and 2 breeder class students. I suppose there are some who don't know me here? First, let me introduce myself. I'm Jinbi, and I'll be the leader and recorder for this training journey. The student who had been composed from the beginning spoke up as soon as everyone had gathered. He then pulled out a device resembling a Pokédex. This device will record our performance throughout the training journey. If you're interested in credit rewards, give it your all. Our destination this time is North Lake, in the far north corner of MT Coronet. North Lake. Each participant was aware of the training journey's destination beforehand. Terence had naturally done his research too. Among the students, North Lake was often called the Lake of Gyarados, a place dominated by Gyarados. The main task for this training journey was to challenge the Gyarados. The several days of traveling to and from North Lake also made up a significant part of the training journey. After the introductions, everyone became more familiar with each other. Leading the training journey was graduation class student Jinbi. The deputy leader was the graduation class student Missanji. The team consisted of breeder class students Terence and Oran, the mature youth from the advanced class, CG, the intermediate class student Yuko, and the student with spiky hair, Tobias. By the way, I've heard there's a Gyarados King in North Lake. It seems many students have been defeated by it. Yuko, who was going to North Lake for the first time, asked curiously. No worries, it's my opponent. You guys just need to deal with regular Gyarados, Jinbi said. It's my opponent. Missanji stared blankly at Jinbi. As fellow graduation class students, Jinbi couldn't possibly not recognize Missanji. In fact, they were quite familiar with each other. You are always like this, he scratched his head in exasperation, seemingly at a loss when it comes to Missanji. You'd better not show off. Graduation exams are coming up soon, and if you don't perform well, it could affect your final evaluation, Jinbi advised. Missanji fell silent. Terence, on the other hand, checked his backpack, going over his supplies one last time, medicines, food, emergency items. He had everything he needed. Shortly after, they divided the tasks and set some small goals. As the leader and the more experienced one, Jinbi explained several important points to keep in mind. After receiving confirmation from everyone, they set off on their journey. Stepping outside the walls of Crown Academy, Terence reminisced about his first encounter with a training journey. It had happened right when he had just arrived at Crown Academy, as he crossed paths with a group of students who were going out. It was his first time going out with other students as part of a team, and this experience was quite novel for him. I just hope everything goes smoothly. For Terence, participating in this training journey was not primarily about going to North Lake. The key objective was to find a place along the way with a strong magnetic field. This would allow Nosepass to evolve during this outing, which was the primary goal. Chapter 87, Daily. The Academy's sportswear was essential for any outdoor adventures. It can adapt to various environments, is made of sturdy and elastic material. Not only was it waterproof, fire-resistant and electric-proof, but it was also very comfortable to wear. In a small mountain path north of Mt. Coronet, a group of 7 individuals dressed in blue sportswear stood by a rock, setting up their cutlery and food ingredients. How can you be sure there are no wild Pokémon around here? Tobias, the student with spiky hair, asked Orange with curiosity. However, he didn't receive any response. The utensils are ready. Does anyone know how to cook? If not, I'll start, but I can't guarantee it'll suit your taste, Jinbi said. I brought compressed food for myself, Missanji replied indifferently. I also brought some dry rations. But it would be best if we could have a hot meal, CG added. I can try to help, Yuko offered. If we start a fire, it might attract other Pokémon. Terence brushed the fallen layer of snow on the rocks, the cold sensation tingling in his hand, and thought of something. What do you mean? Tobias quickly approached. It's Snover. In this season, they should be hiding in caves at the base of the mountain. It's a habit of Snover. In the cold season, they migrate to the mountain's base. They are very sensitive to temperature, and as soon as spring arrives, they will return to the snow-covered mountain top. And one more thing, if they discover human footsteps, even if it's winter, they'll follow them out of curiosity. This phenomenon must be quite common on Mt. Coronet. If we light a fire, for Snover, which is sensitive to temperature, it would be like signaling that humans have passed through. After saying this, Terence rummaged through his backpack and found something like a compass to observe the magnetic field here. That's true, but don't worry. This kind of thing happens often during a training journey. Most Snover are friendly. If we can share some food with them, I think they'll be happy to befriend us, Jinbi explained with a smile, clearly having had such experiences before. Well, you sure know a lot, and unlike her, you're not cold, Tobias remarked to Terence and then playfully grinned at Orange. In the cold weather, they sipped on hot soup. The rolling hills around them, white mountains, and the vast sky made them feel particularly comfortable. The soup is quite good, Terence said, surprised after taking a sip. Of course, I've pulled out all my special skills, Yuko said with a smug look on her face, evidently satisfied with her cooking. During the brief lunch break, they didn't encounter any Snover, as luck would have it. After a short rest, they continued their journey along Mt. Coronet's slope. The further north they went, the more unpredictable the temperature changes became. Some areas were very cold, while others suddenly warmed up, and nobody could explain the reason for these changes. It seems like we haven't encountered any Pokémon on our way, except for that Onyx just now, CG said. And that Onyx looked so lazy, so lifeless. Yeah, but how about a Pokémon battle, Senpai? It's rare for us to be out here, so let's have a warm-up before challenging Lake of Gyarados. Tobias suddenly became interested. CG hesitated for a moment and then said, to be honest, I'm not really interested. Even if we were to battle, I'd prefer him as my opponent, he added, turning his gaze towards Missanji. Your Sceptile seems to have received praise from that female trainer. As the only student who has been praised, you must be proud, right? Hey, Jinbi's face changed upon hearing that and tried to stop him. Tisk, Missanji glanced briefly at CG. If it were the students from your advanced class, they might have lost even more miserably. Actually, I'm quite regretful that I didn't get a chance to battle that trainer, CG said with a faint smile. The atmosphere suddenly grew tense. Well, Yuko spoke softly, speaking of which, there seem to be more and more exceptional trainers appearing in Sinnoh lately, not just Cynthia. During my last vacation, when my friends and I went to visit the survival area in Sinnoh, we also encountered a really formidable guy. That guy didn't seem too old, but in the survival area's battleground, he had a winning streak of 100 battles. I heard he's actually from a battleground family. By the way, all of the Pokémon he used were fire type, and even if the opponent sent out water type Pokémon, He handled them with ease. Survival Area's Battleground, 100 win streak. The people present had no doubt about the credibility of this information. Compared to win streak on the roadside challenges, Survival Area attracted trainers from various places, even from other regions, making it highly competitive. Trainers who could stand out in such a place were definitely not just all talk. With what you're saying, the pressure at the academy must be intense. Orange, who had been quiet throughout the journey, suddenly spoke. Honestly, seeing you all struggling like you can't breathe, I'm tempted to switch from the breeder class to the battle class. Student Orange, I look forward to the day when you defeat Cynthia, Tobias said with a mischievous grin. There was little to be done in response to Tobias' words, except for some eye-rolling from the others. Then, as they continued their journey with occasional stops, they encountered different Pokémon along the way, such as Chingling, Nosepass, Geodude, and even Zubat sleeping in caves. It wasn't until near nightfall that they found a safe place to rest for the night. Early the next morning, Terence, still half asleep, yawned and decided to freshen up. Next was Terence's time to feed his Pokémon. Whether it was Swablu, Misdreavus, or Beautifully, it was a period when their strength could be significantly improved, so nutrition was essential. The most challenging to please was the little Misdreavus, who seemed to have a fondness for feelings of fear. Although this was the most suitable food for Misdreavus and would provide the most significant benefit, it was also a scarce resource. Impossible to guarantee for every meal. Terence put in considerable effort to cater to the picky Misdreavus. He had sought advice from teacher Teresa about ghost-type Pokémon's dietary knowledge and finally, after conducting several rounds of tests, Terence discovered a taste that Misdreavus could accept. Even though the nutritional content is quite similar, and other Pokémon don't mind it, the relatively tasty food just doesn't work for Terence's Misdreavus. Who knows why you like bitter flavors so much, Terence said helplessly as he watched Misdreavus enjoying its meal. With the rising sun, not only Terence but also the other students started tending to their Pokémon, preparing to face a new day on their journey. Chapter 88, Powerful Energy Ahead. The morning sun slowly descended upon every corner of Mt. Coronet as Terence and his group cautiously navigated a treacherous mountain path. The magnetic needle on Terence's cuff kept swaying, bringing both joy and unease to him. The magnetic field is getting stronger. KRSHHH. Suddenly, a tremor emanated from the distance, causing the pebbles on the ground to tremble slightly and dust to cascade down from the mountain rocks. Terence looked up, following the direction of the tremor, unsure whether to be pleased or concerned. What's going on? Faced with this mysterious tremor, everyone halted in their tracks. It sounds like a Pokémon's cry, Jinbe observed, frowning as he looked at the swaying branches. It's Nosepass, Orange said. Yes, it's the warning cry of Nosepass, Terence confirmed. What should we do? Yuko inquired. If we continue forward, we'll enter Nosepass territory, it must be their evolution period. Terence explained. How fortunate, Terence chuckled. Evolution period. Tobias scratched his head, unfamiliar with the term Terence used. Just understand that there are many Nosepass gathered ahead, engaging in battles among themselves to determine the strongest one. This seems to be a special ritual of Mt. Coronet's Nosepass. Thanks to the constantly changing magnetic field on Mt. Coronet, we are able to coincidentally encounter this spectacle. Should we continue forward? Yuko asked. Of course. What's the goal of our training journey? Isn't it to challenge and capture powerful Pokémon? CG said. A Nosepass colony. Misanji's expression showed interest. It looks like you've all made a decision, Jinbe noted. No one hesitated to face the Nosepass, and they continued on their way. Terence wasn't surprised by their choice. The place with a large congregation of Nosepass, the magnetic field must be strongest there. If I time it right, these 4 Nosepass can also evolve together. The group picked up the pace, and at the same time, their strides became more steady. After all, the road was treacherous, and there was no room for relaxation. Stay vigilant, Jinbe reminded. At this moment, as they passed through a narrow path flanked by mountains, dark shapes loomed overhead, and fragmented rocks tumbled perilously from the mountainsides. Red-nosed creatures stood high on mountains on either side, blinking their eyes as they watched the trainers slowly advancing below. Boom! Boom! Huff 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 huff! At this moment, the students' sense of danger surged to the peak, and they quickly threw out their Pokeballs. Infernape, Fire Spin Jinbe. Septal, Leaf Blade, Missanji. Toxic Roke, Mud Bomb. CG. Meanwhile, Yuko's Luxio, Tobias's Ambipom, Orange's Cherim, and Terrence's Beautifully all used their moves to defend against the falling rocks from above. First, Fire Spin hindered their descent, then Septal jumped up and sliced the large rocks into pieces, and finally, Mud Bomb, Thunderbolt, Swift, Magical Leaf, and String Shot were used one after another to fend off the attack. Only then did everyone focus their attention on the culprit, Nosepass. 1, 2. Terrence carefully counted, and there were 9 Nosepass visible alone. It seemed that this ritual was quite high level. It's the rock throw move, we should leave this place, Jinbi suggested. We can climb up from over there. Beautifully, shield everyone, Terrence pointed in a direction. To prevent interference from outsiders, Nosepass were very aggressive and their rock throw attacks were very concentrated, but thanks to Terrence and others' Pokémon, the journey remained perilous but uneventful. Beautifully, let's go, Terrence said, lowering his head to glance at the rapidly oscillating compass needle. Beautifully moved with remarkable agility. Even when faced with shattered rocks, it effortlessly defused the danger by spitting out a strand of silk and flinging them away. Don't engage in battle, our objective isn't them, Jinbi stated. The Nosepass continued to press their attack, but Terrence and the group were not here to merely battle these 9 Nosepass. They wanted to witness the spectacle of all the Nosepass engaged in a grand battle to determine the strongest one, and to see their evolution. Let's find a place to hide for now, Yuko suggested. Pursued by the Nosepass, the group climbed a steep mountain path, leaving everyone panting and exhausted. Terrence stretched his sore shoulders and looked back, and there were no signs of the Nosepass. What's next? There were just 9 Nosepass blocking us, but there might be more, CG patted his chest and said. Both of you have good stamina, Jinbi remarked. He thought that the 2 girls might struggle to keep up. However, the girls, although a bit tired, were not physically inferior to the boys. Have you forgotten? This is basic for a trainer, Yuko replied with a long exhale. Orange, on the other hand, simply nodded and started checking if her Cherim was injured. This is a rare occurrence. Whether Nosepass can evolve fully depends on their accumulated experience. Conservatively, having 2 or 3 Nosepass undergoing evolution would be considered good, Terrence explained. If you want to capture Probopass or Nosepass, I suggest waiting until after their ritual is over. Their group behavior is only temporary, and once this magnetic field dissipates or the ritual concludes, they will leave individually. We understand. In such situations, advice from breeder class students was always helpful. Orange didn't offer any comments but nodded in response to Terrence's words. However, deep down, she had already started to acknowledge Terrence's skills to some extent. Quietly, the group slowly retraced their steps, searching for the main gathering place of the Nosepass. Simultaneously, Jinbi had his Staraptor soar into the sky to scout the surroundings. As for Terrence, apart from using the magnetic compass to trace their whereabouts, he had no other method. After all, Nosepass bodies contained a strong magnetic force, and with so many of them gathered together, the intensity of the magnetic field emitted was unimaginable. Moreover, that location must currently be the most concentrated point of special magnetic field fluctuations in MT Coronet. Found them. Jinbi, who was leading the way, suddenly stopped and whispered. Wow, Terrence's magnetic compass had completely broke down upon arrival here. The chaotic magnetic field rendered it useless. The intense magnetic field, which could even be felt in their bodies, made their breathing somewhat difficult. The group's movements became even more cautious, fearing that they might be detected by the Nosepass. Hiding behind rocks in the distance, they cautiously peeked out and could see a multitude of large red noses, packed closely together. Chapter 89, Normal Intervention. Terrence and others found themselves in an open space to the south of the rocky area, where dozens, even hundreds of Nosepass stood, staring blankly at each other, communicating in an indescribable way. For Pokémon, these magical creatures, even though they have mouths, their methods of communication are quite peculiar. A dense magnetic force fluctuated over this area, and between some Nosepass, dust and debris began to swirl, creating a sandstorm. Watching the dozens of Nosepass gathered together with a solemn atmosphere, the group took a deep breath, feeling a bit impatient. For such a long time, the Nosepass had done nothing but stand there foolishly. The Crown Academy students kept a distance from the Nosepass, but it was uncertain whether this distance was safe. The Nosepass seemed to be getting restless, and it was unclear how intense it would become if they were to engage in a battle. Pi. Pi. About 15 minutes passed, and it seemed like the Nosepass had reached some kind of understanding. They began to cry out in unison, with faint lightning emanating from their bodies. Afterwards, nearly 100 Nosepass suddenly acted, causing a brief chaos. Lightning flashed, rocks tumbled, and the continuous sounds of collisions could be heard, causing the hearts of those present to accelerate. It's starting. The group stuck their heads out, watching the intense battle in the distance, wishing they could watch it from up close. Soon, more Nosepass joined the fray, and the battleground expanded, pushing many Nosepass farther away. Wait a minute, it looks like some Nosepass are heading in this direction, Tobias suddenly exclaimed. In the distance, 5 or 6 Nosepass with bodies emitting lightning were moving at a frenetic pace, giving off a chaotic rhythm. The movements of these Nosepass were erratic, and some of them were running straight towards Terence and others. I'll handle this, Missanji's eyes sparkled as he watched the Nosepass fight, his eagerness to join in clearly visible on his face. Isn't it dangerous to do that with so many Nosepass around? Yuko expressed concern. It's okay, my septal is the strongest septal in the world, Missanji said calmly, gripping the Pokeball. This kind of battle is perfect for giving it some fighting experience. As soon as the words fell, Jinbi shrugged. He had heard this so many times that he was starting to get sick of it. In fact, it doesn't matter, now that the Nosepass have lost their rationality, even if we jump into the fray, they won't unite to attack us. Of course, in such a chaotic situation, the chances of getting injured will increase. Terence waved his hand. Wild Nosepass evolved by relying on waves emitted by special magnetic fields. When these waves interact with the magnetic force emitted by their bodies, they combine and emit a mysterious electrical wave that can attract other Nosepass, who are drawn to it subconsciously. During this combining process, Nosepass lose their rationality, and the release of magnetic force within its body will become extremely chaotic. At this point, whichever Nosepass can complete the combination first will successfully evolve. In the wild, when this particular electromagnetic wave appears, it often lures many Nosepass to gather to obtain it. In the process of absorbing the magnetic waves, chaos is inevitable, but losing in battle can also interrupt the electrical wave combination of some Nosepass, causing their evolution to fail. So, among dozens of Nosepass, the one that can successfully evolve and occupy the dominant position is often very rare. Is that so? Upon hearing Terence's words, some of the more combative people among them showed signs of eagerness. Yeah, I've brought Oran berries for replenishing energy, and I also have some potions and paralyze heal. If things get tough, don't push yourselves and come back here for treatment. This chaotic situation won't end quickly, Terence continued. He patted the 4 other Pokeballs at his waist and smiled with anticipation. Jinbi, Missanji, CG, Tobias, and even Yuko all brought their own Pokémon to intercept the incoming Nosepass and joined the fight. This meant that only the 2 breeder class students chose not to get involved. Aren't you going? Orange, who rarely speaks, asked. Me? Nah, we still need someone to handle logistics, Terence replied. Besides, is this really okay? Them intervening might disrupt the Nosepass natural evolution. Orange looked at Terence. Terence smiled and said, disrupting natural evolution? We haven't reached that level yet. Trainers like us are also considered one of nature's uncertainties for these Nosepass. Moreover, these Nosepass are only a small fraction of their population within MT Coronet. Otherwise, why do you think they all work together to drive us outsiders away? First, they deal with external factors, then their own interspecies struggles. Their evolution is also built on the bodies of their own kind. For them, our intervention isn't accidental but a natural inevitability. Terence spoke as the 5 people who had gone out had already joined the battle. They commanded their Pokémon to fight while standing near other Pokémon to protect themselves. Nonsense, Orange huffed lightly. Terence didn't explain further. According to his understanding, the path of evolution for wild Pokémon is complicated, with a variety of special and complex situations. The purpose of evolution is to make itself stronger and show a specific adaptation to certain environmental conditions. Wild Pokémon evolves just to better adapt to the environment. But whether this kind of evolution was good or bad for Pokémon themselves was still unknown. Terence had once come across an example in a report. In the Kanto region, the most common bird Pokémon, Pidgey and Spearow, were in a perpetual state of rivalry due to competition for food. Spearow would attack Pidgey, Pidgeotto would attack Spearow, and then Firo would retaliate against Pidgeotto. This cycle continued until a leader-level Pidgeot emerged, providing safety and security to the Pidgey race. Pidgey was at a significant disadvantage in this competitive relationship, but contrary to expectations, evolution didn't lead to good results. According to a researcher's investigation, the survival chances of Pidgey in this competition were much higher than those of Pidgeotto. Because every Pidgeotto, despite having better hunting conditions and strength, was often targeted by the Spearow race to prevent them from evolving into the leader Pidgeot for the Pidgey race. In Terrance's view, their level of involvement would hardly cause any harm to nature, as there were no natural predators for Nosepass within MT Coronet. Evolution into Probopass brought them benefits in terms of strength and lifespan, with no significant differences beyond that. If one were to consider the truly detrimental behavior, it would be a group of trainers capturing all the Pidgeotto in a forest. In that case, Pidgey would be eliminated in competition with Spearow, and the prey species would also disappear. As a result, the entire forest ecosystem would collapse into oblivion. Chapter 90, Nosepass Evolution. Terrance understood Orange's attitude. Breeder class students know more about the living environment and habits of Pokémon than trainers. However, due to their superficial understanding, they often couldn't analyze and comprehend on their own, leading to a series of misunderstandings and mistakes. This was a common issue among rookie breeders. These doubts arising from imperfect understanding needed to be rebuilt into correct viewpoints through continuous learning. Trainers capture Pokémon, battle them, and challenge powerful Pokémon as a custom in this world. Terrance couldn't definitively judge right from wrong in this matter. At least until now, he had mostly seen the side where humans and Pokémon coexisted peacefully, living in harmony. Human efforts to protect the ecosystem were also gradually improving and being regulated through laws and policies. This reminded Terrance of the phrase that was often featured in Trainer Times: humans and Pokémon are partners, companions. The battle between Nosepass and the students was extremely chaotic. Various moves were released without any pattern, and they could land on someone's head at any moment. At this moment, the cooperation between the trainer and the Pokémon is extremely important. The 5 students who had gone out each released 2 Pokémon, one to participate in the fight and one to protect themselves. Rocks, lightning, sandstorm, everyone had to bring their mental and physical alertness to the highest level at this moment. In this unregulated battle, the students' reactions and commands were also put to the test. Rocks tumbled, only to be sliced into fragments by Missange's Septal. Some Nosepass also used the move Rock Blast, which was more difficult to dodge, more powerful, and has a more incredible number of rocks than ordinary Rock Slide or Rock Throw. There were also a few Nosepass in the center of the sandstorm, their figures constantly flashing in the haze, making it difficult for them to pinpoint their positions. Although the Nosepass no longer had coordinated consciousness at this moment, they were numerous, and in the blink of an eye, everyone was forced to battle several Nosepass. Boom! A Nosepass was knocked back, but it just swayed a bit and immediately stood up, rejoining the battlefield. Under the stimulation of the special magnetic field, the Nosepass were all in their best condition, exhibiting 120% of their strength. They felt no fatigue, no fear, and in their relentless pursuit of the innate desire for evolution, they could be described as insanely driven. The competition among Pokémon in nature is truly brutal. Terrance stood at a distance, watching the other students passionately engage in battle, each looking extremely excited. He was feeling a little regretful. Battles of this scale were rare for trainers, an opportunity to gain a large amount of battle experience. But there's no other way. Once again, he gazed at the chaotic battlefield before focusing on 4 peculiar Nosepass. Compared to the other Nosepass, these 4 seemed to have retained their rationality. Their movements were orderly, and even more remarkably, when other Nosepass occasionally intruded into their area, they exhibited a kind of teamwork, continuously driving away their opponents. Those 4 Nosepass are so strange. Orange slowly noticed these 4 Pokémon who appeared to be different from the other Nosepass. During the Nosepass combination with the special magnetic field, their condition seemed more stable, unlike the other Nosepass, who were usually irritable. They were calmly capturing and sensing the fluctuations of the magnetic field. Dong! Dong! During the fight, a long time passed. The students had dirt on their faces and clothes, and they all looked a bit exhausted. Such battles were physically and mentally draining for them. After long hours of competition, on a steep slope, a Nosepass emitted a strange cry, instantly capturing everyone's attention. Then, under the gaze of all, it began radiating intense white light. Evolution has begun. As the white light flashed, the other nosepass around it seemed to be stimulated in some way, and they all rushed eagerly in its direction with increased agility. First, Terence began counting. This was the first nosepass in the group to successfully capture the magnetic field fluctuations and complete its perfect evolution. Under the electromagnetic waves emitted from the combination of magnetic force and field fluctuations, the other nosepass seemed to have smelled an enticing scent and rushed toward it with full force. However, only the first 3 nosepass to arrive were accepted by the white light, and they too radiated intense white light, beginning the final step of their evolution, fusion. This evolution of nosepass is an original setting by the author. At this point, the other nosepass that had arrived later seemed to lose their direction and were bewildered, starting another round of the magnetic force frenzy. Has it evolved? I want to battle it, CG, who was closest to this nosepass, made up his mind in the next moment. He had his toxic rope break the rocks blocking his path and continued forward. The evolution process was brief. The nosepass that had started it soon transformed from a small stone figure into a probopass, standing at least over 1 meter tall. Compared to nosepass, its red nose had become larger, the bald area on its head had turned red, and below its nose, there was now a cluster of thick black whiskers. As for the 3 nosepass that had joined it later, they clung to probopass body like ornaments, becoming its vassals. Dong. Having completed the evolution, probopass was in exceptionally high spirits. The other 3 mini-nos also flew up and surrounded probopass. Seeing this scene, Terence found it quite miraculous. Evolution that required 4 similar Pokémon. For Pokémon, these incredible creatures, anything was possible indeed. Some even called probopass the most shameless Pokémon because when battling it, you were essentially facing 4 opponents. Through the magnetic force, probopass could even establish a sensory link with the 3 mini-nos, controlling them in battle, conducting a combat style similar to operating funnels. Weapon in Gundam series. Next, not only CG but also the other nosepass began to attack, regardless of whether the opposing Pokémon had already evolved or not. The now sane probopass was clearly angered by these harassers. After emitting an angry cry, it was forced to rejoin the battle. What's going on? Yuko looked at the 4 nosepass that remained unfazed by her attacks, displaying a flawless defensive formation. She wore an astonished expression. These 4 nosepass still have their rationality. Her Pokémon attacked, but facing the coordinated effort of the 4 nosepass, she felt powerless as she couldn't break through their defense. Yuko's sudden appearance troubled Terence, who had been observing the 4 nosepass from a distance. Ever since he had confirmed the unusual magnetic field changes in the area with his magnet compass, Terence had released the 4 nosepass and infiltrated this ritual in advance. As Pokémon that had been captured and tamed, these nosepass had a unique advantage. They wouldn't fall into the same chaos as wild Pokémon. To prevent them from getting confused, Terence had prepared some lavender incense in advance, allowing them to remain calm and suppress the restlessness caused by the turbulent magnetic force in their bodies, thus letting them focus on sensing the fluctuations in the special magnetic field. Seeing Yuko about to challenge the 4 nosepass, Terence revealed a helpless expression. He was about to shout a warning, but in the next moment, one of the 4 nosepass began to emit the white light of evolution, leaving Terence utterly surprised. Chapter 91, Hunters. Nosepass. It's evolving. Terence was surprised, while Yuko was stunned. Watching the nosepass suddenly evolving in front of her, along with the other 3 nosepass that plunged into the white light, she wore a surprised expression. This one's evolving too. Well, these 4 nosepass look quite special. Let me catch this one. Yuko clenched her fists, eagerly watching nosepass evolve. Then, the white light dispersed, revealing probopass before them. Terence had already walked out and, facing the nosepass blocking his path, he commanded without hesitation. Beautifully, Electroabe. Terence gave the order to beautifully. Baa ought to fly. A crackling electric net immobilized the nosepass, and then Terence walked in Yuko's direction. Rock throw. Nosepass kept approaching Terence, but thanks to Beautifly's string shot, even heavy stones couldn't easily land on him. Silver wind. He kept clearing the obstructing stones. Terence didn't choose to go around, instead he had Beautifully blow them all away. From Orange's perspective, Terence's actions were those of a seemingly quiet guy who suddenly burst out and, with great determination, cleared away the obstacles in his path, steadily moving towards a certain destination. Then, she saw Probopass and Yuko, who were about to battle, interrupted by a burst of red light. Red light. Letting out and recalling Pokémon, the light emitted by Pokeballs. What's this? You captured it. Watching Terrence approach with a Pokeball in hand, Yuko stopped her command and asked with some confusion. Of course not, how could I do that so easily? These 4 Nosepass were originally released by me, Terrence explained. Yours? So, these Nosepass were already captured. No wonder their behavior was so strange, Yuko suddenly realized. Congratulations, they've evolved. After recalling Probopass, Terrence felt a sense of relief. There was still some time left in his task of assisting Nosepass in evolving. In the meantime, the newly evolved Probopass could assist him in some special training. Gravity. It should have learned that move by now. Nosepass completed its evolution, so Terrence stepped back. For the remaining period, it was clear that the evolution of the other Nosepass would keep on going. They participated in this battle, which was unlike the usual one-on-one or double battles, and many of the students gained profound insights and benefited greatly. In the end, out of the dozens of Nosepass present, only 3 managed to evolve successfully, aside from those brought by Terrence. The peak concentration of the special magnetic field was only temporary. Next, the complex environment of MT Coronet would cause the magnetic field to reappear elsewhere. As for where it would appear, there was no discernible pattern to follow. After the battle, their Pokémon were greatly exhausted. Terrence and Orange, as breeder class students, took on the responsibility of tending to their Pokémon's injuries and providing them with suitable food to replenish their energy. This battle could be described as high-intensity combat. There was no rest, and trainers couldn't afford a moment of leisure. They were fully immersed in the battle from start to finish, and such battles were excellent for honing a trainer's willpower. That was so exhilarating. Tobias sat on the ground, watching the scattered Nosepass in the distance and sighing, if it were one-on-one battles, they wouldn't stand a chance against me, but when their numbers increase, they become a bit challenging. It's such a pity, Yuko sighed, still feeling discouraged that she couldn't capture a Probopass. Those 3 Mini-Nos were too cunning, they blocked the path with a pile of rocks while I wasn't paying attention and then ran away. I've no interest in them. I have got Sceptile, and that's enough, Missanji replied. A cold wind blew. On another road of MT Coronet, several large trucks rolled heavily over the ground, moving forward without interruption. Inside the truck, it resembled more of a meeting room. A middle-aged man in a black leather jacket, with a somewhat stern expression on his face, propped his head up with his hand as he coldly scanned the man sitting across from him at the round table. Why did you call me along and go to a place like this? That thing should exist elsewhere too. You know. I hate snow the most. Just seeing snow makes me want to melt it all. Across from him, a grey-haired man cleared his throat. I've been spotted. The other locations have already been put under surveillance. There's only one left, the one that was discovered by accident. This is the last step. If we succeed, we can wrap things up. I promise you will never be short of money, and whether you will need to take action or not is still unknown. I hope everything goes smoothly. So boring. I'm tired of doing illegal things. After this is over, I'll take the money you promised and quit all future operations, said the man in the black leather jacket. As you wish, the grey-haired man replied. The man in black jacket stood up, climbed the ladder inside the truck. Looking at the snow-white scenery in front of him, he let out a bored sigh. It's the scent of those hunters again. There were a total of 4 trucks, and in the frontmost truck, a man who looked like a researcher operated a computer. A blue, special light orb continuously blinked, occasionally accompanied by beeping sounds. Target response is strong. Located in a desolate area. No signs of human presence. A series of information was transmitted to the grey-haired man, but he only glanced at them casually, ignoring these useless detections. If the observation was useful, they wouldn't have been pursued all the way here. Relay to Team 2, be cautious of the surroundings. If there's even the slightest disturbance, raise the alert level immediately. On the other side, the group heading towards North Lake, after the Nosepass evolution incident, continued to advance towards their destination. As they moved forward, they soon encountered new Pokémon. In MT Coronet, there was no lack of Pokémon. Among them were Pokémon with outstanding strength, like the Medicham that now stood before them. Even the 2 students of the graduation class would find it challenging in a one-on-one battle. Medicham is a dual-type Pokémon, both fighting and psychic, known for its rigorous yoga training in the snowy mountains. It can suppress opponents like a storm with its fighting techniques. As long as it is focused and concentrated, it has the power to predict its opponent's movements in advance. It fights in a graceful manner, like dancing. The first Pokémon sent out by Jinbe was immediately pushed back. However, the battle didn't last long. It was clear that this Medicham had no intention of engaging in combat. After a few rounds of fighting, it immediately left the area. And so, as they encountered and battled different Pokémon along the way, they drew closer and closer to North Lake. Chapter 92, 3 Types of Evolutions. Snowpoint City. Mr. Looker, the road has been blocked. What's our next move? A green-haired policewoman in uniform asked the man in a brown coat. The road is blocked? Then this time, we absolutely cannot let them escape again. Do we need to call for additional support? The policewoman inquired. Not for now. We don't want to tip them off, and we also have to keep officers stationed in other areas. We still don't know how many plans they have. Mr. Looker, there's one more thing. That trainer has also tracked them here. The policewoman hesitated for a moment before speaking. Should we restrict her movements? Involving an ordinary trainer might be dangerous. Looker nodded. When it came to those hunters, they would stop at nothing when facing enemies. Ordinary trainer rules couldn't be applied when dealing with them. Don't alert anyone. On the surface, our forces are still scattered in 3 other locations. Their target is on MT Coronet, and they also fear our intervention. Officer Jenny, I'll go in for reconnaissance alone. We'll stay in contact, and please inform the local gym trainers to cooperate. The resources on MT Coronet should be under the control of that academy. Please contact the Crown Academy's officials and provide them with a detailed report of the situation. Next, we'll proceed according to our plan. I will give the orders. I understand. Officer Jenny's beautiful eyes radiated a touch of heroism as she saluted crisply. Snowpoint City Police Station. Officer Jenny looked at the trainer who insisted on taking part and showed a helpless expression. We've already sent someone to investigate on our end, and there's nothing unusual. Please rest assured. If we do encounter any problem, please trust that the Snowpoint City Police will do everything in our power to stop it. Thank you for your assurance. Cynthia frowned, clearly dissatisfied with Officer Jenny's evasive attitude. She didn't feel any reassured because of what the other party said. Based on the information gleaned from the stronghold she destroyed, every detail pointed to the fact that their target this time is on MT Coronet. However, as an ordinary trainer, getting involved in a police investigation would be challenging. She also understood that they wouldn't let a teenage girl get involved in any dangerous situation. Of course, if it's convenient, please stay and help us gather relevant information to assist in our investigation. Cynthia nodded in a seemingly absent-minded manner, but in her mind, she was still acutely aware that these were just polite words meant to keep her from running around. May I make a call to the Celestic Town's Historical Research Center? MT Coronet. It's quite far, speed up, I can't wait to battle. I'm getting fired up. Don't be in a hurry, the leader of the Gyarados won't be easy to deal with. We need to prepare some tactics first, Jinbe advised. We'll receive credits if we defeat the Gyarados, right? Yuko asked. Tien, author has used token in Ross here, which I am not sure if it's a mistake or tokens are some kind of reward. I will use credits for now and change it later if I made a mistake. That's right, once we gain the recognition of the Gyarados, we can take the water stone from here. Although we'll have to return it to the academy afterward, Jinbe explained. Can you guys tell me what's the relationship between the Gyarados of North Lake and the academy? Is that place owned by the academy? Tobias asked curiously. I don't think so. CG hesitated. There's precedent. As long as you can earn their recognition, you can completely tame them. But they all live in groups, so it would be very difficult to get one of them to acknowledge you, he added. They are indeed wild Pokémon, but don't underestimate them, especially the leader of those Gyarados. I believe it has the strength to rank quite high even in the Tower of Despair, Jinbe said. Moreover, it's fighting on its home turf with a significant number of companions by its side. Tower of Despair. Then, roughly, what level could this Gyarados reach? Tobias asked in amazement. It's hard to say, but I estimate it would be beyond the 20th level, Jinbe replied. 20 levels? Is this still a wild Pokémon? That's unbelievable! Yuko exclaimed. For intermediate class students, even passing the first level would be a big challenge. Don't forget, This is MT Coronet, and the wild Pokémon here are known to have the highest standards in Sinnoh. Besides, it's not a one-on-one battle. We have a whole team. Jinbei laughed, but I heard that the evolution method of that Gyarados leader is quite unique. Unique. Tobias and Yuko were clearly very interested. Yes, but let the two from the breeder class explain such specialized academic matters. Jinbei diverted the topic. Terence was walking lazily along the road, somewhat absent-minded. He wasn't particularly interested in challenging North Lake. Now that Nosepass has evolved, he has achieved his goal. Seeing everyone's attention on him and Orange's expression indicating reluctance to speak up, Terence reluctantly explained, the most common methods of evolution for Pokémon fall into three categories. One is the familiar normal evolution, which occurs through battles, by absorbing nutrition from food, and natural growth following the laws of nature. The second is forced evolution, which results from external factors or unstable elements within the body. The use of an evolutionary stone falls under this category. The third is competitive evolution, a more challenging method of evolution based on normal evolution. It's quite common in the natural world but rarely happens to Pokémon possessed by trainers. The Nosepass we encountered earlier, for example, underwent a simpler form of competitive evolution, something between competitive and normal evolution. That Gyarados leader probably evolved through competitive evolution. Pokémon that evolve this way tend to be much stronger than those that evolve normally. For Pokémon like Magikarp, which can survive as long as there is water and are known as Pokémon that exist wherever there is water, they have a large population base. So, competitive evolution is much harder for them compared to other Pokémon. However, Gyarados most commonly undergoes forced evolution due to external forces or its own anger. Normal evolution of Magikarp mainly occurs in Magikarp that trainers have captured. Through nourishment and accumulating experience, evolution naturally and slowly takes place. Competitive evolution, on the other hand, is only possible for those Magikarp brave enough to venture into the tumultuous seas, daring to challenge the enormous waves and survive in the harsh natural environment. And, these three evolution methods are not mutually exclusive. Terence paused, growing puzzled. While the concept of competitive evolution made sense and explained Gyarados' strength, he wondered how a mere lake could nurture the competitive environment necessary to produce such a powerful Gyarados. Chapter 93, Trainers Who Have Nothing Better to Do. North Lake. The lake surface resembled a shining curtain of light, gazing alongside the clouds in the sky at the continuous MT Coronet. Splash, splash, splash. Splash, splash, splash. A group of Magikarp tumbled in the lake, creating waves. After a long hike, Terence and his team finally arrived at the outskirts of North Lake. Yuko raised her head and, upon seeing the sudden emergence of Gyarados from the lake, took a step back in fright, accompanied by a startled exclamation. What in the world? This Gyarados looked quite different from the others, appearing even more ferocious. Above its forehead, there was a sinister scar, and its blue scales were much deeper in color than usual. As Terence and others arrived, this menacing Gyarados emerged without any greeting. The deep blue horns on its head reflected the sunlight, emitting an aura of strangers not welcome. Following the appearance of this Gyarados, the Magikarp scattered in the lake, and then dark figures moved beneath the water's surface. With a plunk, terrifying faces surfaced as if to intimidate the group. Over a dozen, for a single lake, that's quite astonishing, Terence remarked. This might not even be all of them, Jinbei added. Gyarados, along with a few other specific species, were among the most disliked Pokémon by trainers. Firstly, they had a strong territorial instinct, and anyone or any Pokémon intruding upon their territory would face an attack. Furthermore, some Gyarados, due to their evolution out of anger, became highly irrational and would senselessly attack humans and other Pokémon, even when unprovoked. Due to their unlikable nature, evolved Gyarados often refused to obey their trainers, making them infamous as the most rebellious Pokémon among trainers. Roar! Roar! Standing at the edge of the lake, Terence looked at the Gyarados in the lake, which was strutting around like a hegemon, and gradually felt a trace of yearning in his heart. Chirp! Swablu perched on Terence's head, happily chirping. It has sensed the aura of Gyarados and yearned for this kind of power. Terence gently lifted Swablu off his head. I've told you, you'll become strong one day. The group gazed solemnly at the Gyarados. Compared to the larger number of Nosepass, although there were fewer Gyarados, their mere presence exuded an oppressive aura. In the wild, Encountering a group of Gyarados like this and trying to face them head-on would undoubtedly be suicidal. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The wind around them grew stronger, occasionally lifting nearby weeds and water droplets. The murky tornado scattered in all directions, as if it wanted to pulverize everyone on the shore. At this moment, the group had no choice but to send out their Pokémon to face the threat. The Gyarados were too enthusiastic and proactive, making this tornado seem like a delightful gift from them. Slowly ripples appeared on the lake's surface, and the waves became even more tumultuous. What frustrated them was that raindrops began to fall from the sky. Infernape, can you clear the sky? Jinbe released Infernape and gave the command, but it was evident that Infernape exerted all its strength and still couldn't dispel the rainy weather. The rain continued to pour. Come back, Infernape, Jinbe said resignedly. Then let's go with the plan we discussed earlier. Faced with over a dozen Gyarados, the students had a lineup of 14 Pokémon. Jinbe's Ampharos, Carnivine. Missange's Sceptile, Glally. Seiji's Toxic Roke, Magneton. Tobias's Weevil, Floatzel. Yuko's Luxio, Budu. Orange's Cherim, Gastrodon. And then there was the unfortunate Terrance. Swablu and the borrowed Probopass to make up the numbers. Among this group of people, Terrance's team was the most incomplete. Faced with this situation, he even had to bring out someone else's Pokémon, Probopass, to assist him. Whether it was Beautifully, Swablu, or Misdreavus, none of them were suitable for this battle. Fortunately, Terrance was a breeder class student, and he received everyone's understanding. However, Terrance also realized his shortcomings. The renowned Pokémon professor Samuel Oak once said, "The trainer's foundation is in capturing Pokémon." Although Terrance appreciated the elite composition of the team, he couldn't help but feel that it was a bit too elite at the moment. It had been condensed to the point where there wasn't a single standout Pokémon worthy of being a trump card. Terrance, Terrance, don't be in a hurry. Once Swablu and Misdreavus evolve, everything will get better. In the battle against the Gyarados, the students chose Water-type, Grass-type, and Electric-type Pokémon as their main forces. Before that, Jinbe of the graduation class explained the experience of double battles. Double battles were battles derived from one-on-one battles, where trainers simultaneously commanded two Pokémon in combat, testing the trainer's skill at a higher level. It required constant attention to both the big picture and the details. In an effort to block the approaching tornado, the students' Pokémon unleashed their various moves as if they required no energy, creating a dazzling display of colorful moves intertwining with each other. It looked quite beautiful. However, they had no time to appreciate the spectacle. Roars echoed, and powerful hydro pump were fired with tremendous force. They dared not underestimate the threat and quickly responded to fend off the attacks. It seems my intuition was correct. So, should I call you by your code name, or should I call you Mr. Greyfeather? On a distant mountaintop, a man in black jacket examined the binoculars and casually handed them to his subordinate. It should be a group of over-energetic trainers, nothing to worry about. The grey-haired man's lips curled with a hint of mockery. They're students from that academy, aren't they? Just a bunch of kids with nothing better to do. They're just a group of wealthy young masters and princesses with nowhere to spend their money. They learn some knowledge in their ivory tower, talk about skills, and occasionally engage in some pre-arranged battles to validate their worth, all while harboring unrealistic dreams. Isn't it laughable? Ha ha. Ha ha. Ha ha ha. Mr. Greyfeather, you have a lot of resentment. The man in black jacket smiled. But I'm not interested in your past. What do you want to do with these kids? They've already become a hindrance to us. Of course, we'll take direct control. Time is running out. Once we have what we need, we'll leave immediately. And with them weakening the Gyarados, we'll save ourselves some effort, the grey-haired man said. Prepare to activate Ray Cow. Instruct the 3rd squad to get ready for battle, and the 4th squad to execute Plan A. Chapter 94, The Formidable Gyarados. 7 people vs Gyarados, the key is in teamwork and coordination. After one round of battle, it became evident that North Lake's Gyarados were much better than them. Boom! The dull collision of the moves made the group of people look troubled. Their carefully designed strategy, which used the electrical conductivity of water-type moves to drain the Gyarados' stamina, was unexpectedly countered by the leader of Gyarados in the same way. The rainy sky was filled with drifting dark clouds, and occasional sparks of lightning crackled in the gloomy sky, followed by a stunning thunderbolt striking down. Thunder. Faced with the retaliation of the Gyarados leader, everyone quickly ordered their electric-type Pokémon to block it while instructing their water-type Pokémon to take cover. I've long been saying that this Gyarados is quite powerful, Jinbe remarked. Furthermore, all the other Gyarados use their moves in coordination with it, so we can't disrupt their coordination. Jinbe, Missanji, Yuko, and Orange exchanged glances, then commanded their grass-type Pokémon to use moves like Leech Seed to wear down the Gyarados. It looks like obtaining the Water Stone will be quite challenging. Terence shook his head and heaved a deep sigh, watching Swablu dodging the Dragon Rage, and Probopass using Iron Defense and its body and rocks to block the lightning. Facing Swablu fluttering in the rain, Terence spoke up, "Doing all right." Swablu, feeling frustrated, merely nodded and unleashed a Dragon Pulse, which was quickly obliterated by 2 hydro pumps. A dozen or so ordinary Gyarados protected the powerful leader in the middle. However, it was this Gyarados leader in the middle whose every attack put tremendous pressure on Terence and the others. "Let's change the approach. I'll distract the strongest one, and you guys quickly deal with the others," Missanji said. "How do we do that?" "Why not leave it to me?" Jinbe asked. "I can handle it," Missanji replied without further explanation. He didn't give any time for Jinbe to think about it. When it comes to coordination, the Gyarados clearly had more experience. Moreover, this was their home turf. The students' Pokémon couldn't even set foot in the lake water. Facing electric-type moves, the Gyarados handled them with ease, skillfully blocking the attacks using Surf and Ice Beam, leaving the onlookers stunned. "Then let's freeze the entire lake surface. Glally, use Blizzard." Missanji opted to turn the lake into a walkable surface, but unfortunately, halfway through the process, both the layer of ice and the move was shattered by the Gyarados' counterattack. Anticipating this outcome, Missanji retrieved Glally expressionlessly and released Swellow this time. "Swellow, take Sceptile and fly up," the command was given, causing even Terence to raise an eyebrow. Looks like an aerial battle is in store. Leaving aside the stormy weather, the crucial point was Sceptile's weight, which was at least more than twice that of Swellow's. However, Terence soon realized he was mistaken. Missanji had no intention of letting Sceptile ride it. Instead, Swellow gripped Sceptile tightly with its talons and soared into the sky. Their coordination appeared remarkably in sync, indicating they had practiced this extensively. Once in the air, Swellow became the target of the Gyarados. However, the others weren't going to stand idly by as they were attacked. Looking at several Gyarados preparing to take flight, Terence gave a command, "Gravity." Then, a one-sided gravity field imposed on the Gyarados, slowing down their ascent, then various moves interrupted their takeoff. While facing the Gyarados' attacks from below, Swellow's flight fortunately remained unaffected by the rainy weather, its movements remaining agile. "Everyone, attack!" Jinbe shouted. The others rallied and found their respective targets. However, at this moment, Terence hesitated, feeling somewhat taken aback. A warning from Misdreavus. There were many outsiders approaching. Why would there be people in a place like this? Terence was perplexed, but he couldn't dwell on it for long as the battle was heating up and couldn't be interrupted. Raindrops splashed on his face, and Terence could only instruct Misdreavus to hide itself for now. Watching Swablu and Probopass delaying the Gyarados, Terence couldn't afford to be distracted. Similarly, he also couldn't ignore the outsiders mentioned by Misdreavus. A few months ago, Terence would never have such a mindset. Even Misdreavus would have obediently followed the rules of Pokémon and stayed comfortably inside its Pokeball. However, after meeting Mr. Looker, he had picked up some useful travel tips. Terence realized that these tips made sense, so he started using them one by one. Misdreavus used its inherent ghost-type talent to stay hidden throughout, remaining close to him and monitoring the surroundings. They're probably just passing through, Terence thought. Being interrupted while in the middle of a task due to external factors is the most frustrating thing. Especially since little Misdreavus' monitoring range isn't very wide, it only has an advantage in height. The approaching people must have almost been attracted by the noise. Feeling helpless, Terence had no choice but to shout loudly, "It seems like a lot of people are coming." But the 6 students only briefly hesitated, not dwelling on it. How could they afford to be distracted in the midst of battle? Focusing on the battle was a fundamental rule of trainers, even breeder class student like Orange understood that. Therefore, they didn't pay much attention and remained fully engaged in the battle. Terence understood this too, but he couldn't forget Mr. Looker's words. In the wilderness, one must always be alert to their surroundings, a lesson that had been etched into the hearts of every trainer from decades ago. Leech Seed, Thunderbolt, Hydro Pump, Dragon Rage, the battlefield was filled with various different moves. Sceptile, held by Swellow, leaped down from above towards Gyarados' leader. Facing the Leaf Blade move executed with the assistance of gravitational momentum, Gyarados showed no signs of backing down and responded fiercely with an Aqua Tail. Bang! Surprisingly, their strength was evenly matched. However, this scene left everyone quite anxious because Sceptile had lost its footing, which could be dangerous in such a situation. But judging from Missanji's expression, there didn't seem to be any worry. Suddenly, the yellow spheres on Sceptile's back lit up, and it instantly conjured a storm resembling a tornado. With the power of the storm, Sceptile leaped gracefully back into the air. Leaf Storm! This enraged the Gyarados leader completely, and it roared fiercely toward the sky, unleashing a hyper beam. They had never seen such audacious Gyarados before. It fired the hyper beam as if it were an ordinary move, appearing effortless. However, this only made the group take it more seriously. A Gyarados that could earn admiration from many students surely couldn't be underestimated. On the other side, little Misdreavus flew in the direction where it had seen the figures earlier. Its crimson pupils gazed at the suspicious group, and it had a bad premonition. It wasn't until an oddly shaped armored vehicle emerged from a remote corner and several individuals simultaneously released Pokémon that resembled spiders with purple eyes and horned heads, that little Misdreavus finally sensed their malicious intent. Chapter 95, Unexpected Turn of Events. In North Lake, fighting intent permeated the air. Due to the weather, the students looked a bit disheveled, but it didn't hinder their focus. Inside the lake, Gyarados were waiting to unleash their move, while Missanji, gasping for breath, commanded his Sceptile to engage with the leader of the Gyarados in the air. The remaining people were also busy stopping the other Gyarados from interfering. However, there was a bit of an issue on Terrance's side. His eyes suddenly plunged into darkness, and his mind became a chaotic mess. It's Misdreavus' illusion, Terrance thought, realizing that Misdreavus was trying to convey a message to him. In the darkness, fragments of images played one after another, a group of people in special attire, slow-moving armored vehicles, and the released Ariados. It all made Terrance extremely alert. There's something wrong, Terrance vigorously shook his head to snap out of it. He was ready to alert the others even if it meant interrupting the battle. However, at that moment, a thunderous noise erupted, leaving him disoriented. What in the world? Terrance instinctively covered his ears. It was a colossal machine, for lack of a better word. Including Terrance, all the Pokémon and students' eyes were attracted to it. This is Raikou. Terrance was taken aback. The golden fur, powerful limbs, sharp fangs, and a black steel headgear on its forehead. The headgear covered its forehead, nose, and mouth, with an X-shaped beard below. It even had a light blue, lightning-shaped tail with a spark-shaped tip. The white mane on its face and the thundercloud-like cloak on its back symbolized clouds and cumulonimbus clouds. Underneath this Raikou's feet, arcs of lightning were shimmering. Johto region's legendary Pokémon. No, it's fake. With just a brief glance, Terrance discerned that this was an artificial Pokémon machine. This machine was currently emitting massive electrical currents, and dark purple thunderclouds crackled with electricity, creating a sparkling display akin to hundreds of twinkling stars, forming crackling lightning bolts. Recharging complete. Target, Gyarados in the lake. In the blink of an eye, this Raikou released another deafening thunderbolt, crushing the ice crystal shield created by Gyarados, causing the entire lake to resemble a sea of lightning, shimmering with golden serpentine electricity. Roar! Roar! Angry and powerless cries were mixed with pain. Meanwhile, the students who were frightened by this series of events heard several whoosh sounds, and they lost balance, falling to the ground. What's happening? CG shouted in confusion, bewildered by the sudden turn of events. It's the string shot. Orange pulled frantically at the silk threads wrapped around her feet. Terrance was also ensnared by string shot, but since he was already warned, he quickly managed to calm down and signaled Misdreavus to continue hiding. Then, he looked toward their Pokémon. Whether the Gyarados in the lake or the Pokémon battling on the ground and in the air, they were all struck by the lightning bolts from all directions. The high-powered lightning bolts caused them to lose consciousness, except for a few electric-type and grass-type Pokémon. Sceptile! Missanji shouted, and Sceptile leaped out of the water with numerous injuries. The other people reached for their remaining Pokeballs, but the silk threads grew denser, leaving them no chance to resist. Each person was tightly wrapped up like a giant dumpling. Swablu, Terence clenched his fist as he watched Swablu being knocked down by a lightning bolt. He turned around, his body wriggling, finally getting a clear view of the identity of the attackers. Faced with the students and the Pokémon that still had some energy left, several Ariados and Drapians started the cleanup operation. A few individuals who appeared to be squad leaders directed others, using special tool guns they held to aim at both the fallen and standing Pokémon. Then, they turned their attention towards Terence and his group. "Who are you people? Release us now, you bastards!" Tobias yelled fiercely, struggling and cursing at them. It wasn't just him, other people, when faced with this situation, also couldn't remain calm. Their bodies were being restrained, and their Pokémon were restricted by the opponent's black technology. At this point, they were nothing more than prey, ready to be slaughtered at any moment. "Shut up!" On the armored vehicle, a grey-haired man cursed and shouted, then gave the students a cold stare. "If you want to live, you'd better stay quiet. Take away their Pokémon first." "Yes, sir." "Powerful Pokémon? They're nothing but weaklings. In the face of technology, even the strongest Pokémon are helpless. It only took 3 days of electricity to deal with these troublesome guys." "Haha, how ridiculous." The grey-haired man shook his head in contempt, looking down at the Gyarados that had fallen into the lake. Gyarados, known for their strength in the data, weren't able to withstand a single blow from the fully charged Ray Cow. Trainers should have been eliminated long ago. Terence was flipped over by a young man, who then took out the remaining Pokeballs. Terence felt a tingling sensation on his scalp and his heart raced. "Calm down. I must stay calm." "Poacher," a raspy and low voice spoke out. Terence looked up at the young man who had taken his Pokeballs. The man's expression was indifferent, and he seemed unconcerned with Terence's question, only focused on his task. He didn't take Terence seriously, who was just a young brat around 10 years old. The 7 students, including the girls, were rudely kicked to the side, treated like disposable trash. Jinbi, Misanji, CG, Tobias, and even Orange and Yuko felt extremely frustrated at this moment. With their Pokémon confiscated and unable to muster any physical resistance, the feeling of being shackled nearly drove them to the point of breakdown. "We can't give up, we have to find a way," Jinbi's deep eyes reflected a sense of urgency. "Pokédex, it's still here." Jinbi sighed with relief as he looked at the miniature camera connected to his Pokédex. "If the Academy realizes what's happening here, they will definitely come to our rescue." He wanted to share this information with everyone, but there were still guards watching over them, making it difficult for him to speak out. After all, he couldn't be sure if the Academy was currently monitoring them. "Don't worry," Terence muttered softly, as if speaking to himself, and it was unclear if he was addressing anyone in particular. The 6 people, as well as those keeping watch over them, all turned their attention toward Terence, but they only saw him looking rather silly, as if he were talking to thin air. Chapter 96, Source Stone. Dozens of poachers were gathered at the North Lake of Mt. Coronet in the extreme north. Following their leader's orders, they eagerly began to dig for the hidden treasures deep beneath the lake's surface. The leader of this poacher gang, under the watchful gaze of countless reverent eyes, slowly approached the edge of North Lake. Meanwhile, Mr. Looker was hiding in a discreet location wearing a specially designed outfit. The color of his clothes allowed him to blend seamlessly into the background. However, Looker's current condition was not great. Beads of sweat trickled down his forehead as he regretted his recent actions. From the vantage point overlooking this area, he could see a shadow and a deep red Pokémon resembling a crocodile, making Looker reluctant to make any sudden moves. The opponent is a reconnaissance expert. Thinking to himself, Looker recognized the silhouette of the opposing Pokémon, very much like a crocodile, a Pokémon native to the Unova region. It was known for its binocular-like eyes that could enlarge distant objects freely, making it one of the few suitable Pokémon for reconnaissance. Looker pressed himself against a rock, trying not to make any sudden movements. With so many opponents present, now was not the time for a direct confrontation. Following a prearranged signal, he sent a text message to Officer Jenny's side. Under the stirring of a giant machine, the lake water churned constantly. Several elite researchers were controlling computers to continuously detect the situation within the lake water. Looker silently furrowed his brows. The power of this poaching organization had grown to such a level, which was truly unexpected for him. Whether it was the composition of personnel, the capabilities of the research staff, or the scale that a team should possess, everything was well organized under their management. No wonder they are closely monitored. Their presence has disrupted the balance in the Sinnoh region and they have grown into one of the top poaching organizations in this area. We mustn't underestimate them, Looker's eyes flashed with determination. The poaching organization led by a Sinnoh native named Greyfeather has grown to a considerable scale in just a few decades. Through exchanging favors with various forces and developing technology, they have grown to a substantial size. Every one of their criminal endeavors has a significant and detrimental impact. Their recent actions have already elicited strong resistance from multiple sources. They began by excavating the Firestone vein at Stark Mountain and stole the most critical fire source stone. It led to volcanic unrest and nearly caused a disaster. After that, they headed to Amp Plains, taking the Thunder Source Stone from the Thunderstone vein, severely affecting the stable magnetic field in the plains and causing serious illness in many electric-type Pokémon. Upon the Sinnoh League's discovery of their activities, they immediately traced their tracks and deduced that the poacher gang's next target might be the Water Source Stone. Consequently, they dispatched a significant portion of their forces to ambush them at the three major lakes. Although many forces were aware of the publicly known Waterstone veins, there was another location North Lake within MT Coronet that also held Waterstone veins. However, North Lake was the property of Crown Academy, and because this long-established power seldom made public appearances, very few were aware of it. Greyfeather waved his hand, speaking louder, "We've been working hard for so long, and as soon as we can obtain the Water Source Stone, we can complete this deal. The wealth we acquire next will be enough for us to further strengthen ourselves and become an organization that even the police fear. However, you must understand that our enemies are not just the world or the police, it's the system itself. Think about why you became poachers, why you're wanted by the police, why you ended up in dire straits, struggling even to meet your basic needs. I chose the North Lake vein not because it's easier to obtain. Perhaps even after completing this deal, a big battle may await us. But I promise that after this mission, once we've divided the spoils, the power in your hands will be enough for you to lead normal lives. Those of you who wish to leave this situation, you are free to leave. We've been together for over a decade, and you all know what kind of person I am. Even those who once wanted to leave the team, I never stopped them. Our purpose in forming this group is to help everyone live better, to take back what rightfully belongs to us." These poachers were the elite handpicked by their leader, Greyfeather, making them the cream of the crop within the poacher gang. As for the others, they had been dispersed to various locations to divert the attention of the police. This transaction was the largest deal their poacher gang had ever undertaken, targeting the water, fire, and thunder source stones. The so-called source stones were the foundation of evolutionary stones. A fire source stone, as long as there were abundant fire elements nearby and given enough time, could form a firestone vein. As long as the environment and source stone remained intact, firestones would continue to be produced in abundance. Compared to evolutionary stones, the source stones that generated them were the most precious, but due to the structure and energy of source stones, they lacked the power to induce Pokémon evolution like evolutionary stones. Nevertheless, even so, a source stone can be likened to a gold mine, as with it, one can continually amass wealth. Many businesses and factions have built their foundations through such accumulations. For the Pokémon League, source stones are strategic resources. They determine the production of evolutionary stones, which are highly enticing resources for trainers. Furthermore, a vein of evolutionary stone also has a profound impact on the local ecosystem. Excessive mining can lead to ecological destruction. Therefore, the League generally maintains strict regulation over source stones. So, when poachers targeted their source stones, it was tantamount to provoking the Pokémon League, a more severe offense than illegal trading and Pokémon capture. Their previous two operations had already yielded them the Fire Source Stone, Thunder Source Stone, and a significant quantity of evolutionary stones. This wealth had been snatched from right under the League's nose. Regardless of whether they managed to secure the goods properly, they had certainly become thorns in the side of certain individuals. Greyfeather was taking a huge gamble this time. Many of his subordinates had opposed this mission, but due to his determination, they ultimately chose to follow their leader's decision. Because Greyfeather had never been harsh with his subordinates, granting them considerable freedom of choice, and most of them had been rescued from poverty and the brink of death by him. As a result, in the eyes of his subordinates, Greyfeather was an immensely respected figure, almost like a spiritual pillar. Now we have only one path to seize this vein and successfully break free from the police encirclement. And moving forward, whether you all want to continue or choose to turn over a new leaf and retire, I will have no complaints. Chapter 97, Crazy. Next to a large truck, 7 students were bound. Suddenly, their pores contracted, and their necks felt as though they were entwined by a cold, venomous snake, sending shivers down their spines. Leader. The poacher guarding the 7 immediately addressed respectfully when he saw someone approaching. Greyfeather, the highest leader of this group of poachers, and Sanoa's notorious hunter with the code name 16. The students looked at this person with complex expressions. The young and spirited Tobias and CG even glared angrily and shouted at Greyfeather. Their actions made Jinbi and Terence, among others, anxious, but they could only try to signal them discreetly to stop. Terence sighed inwardly. They were making themselves so conspicuous in this situation, directly clashing with the leader of the opposing group. It was neither rational nor safe. Bayonet. What gave them a chilling feeling was something that looked like an ordinary rag doll with a zipper on its mouth but was, in fact, a Pokémon. It had red eyes even more eerie and strange than mischievous, giving off a creepy feeling. You bastards, release us now. Let go of me, or I'll make you pay for this. Tobias shouting even annoyed Terence, who has quite a good temper. He couldn't see any point in this reckless shouting. Would the other side really release them because of these empty threats? You little brat! Greyfeather didn't get angry, but the poacher guarding the 7 got annoyed first. He kicked Tobias' body, causing him to fall to the ground, groaning in pain. Enough! Greyfeather glanced coldly at Tobias, apparently not concerned about this little bug. Leader. How should we deal with these people? The poacher asked cautiously. What do you think? Greyfeather countered. This question left the poacher stunned, unsure of how to respond. Keep an eye on them for now. We are poachers, not killers. As long as they behave themselves, we'll release them later. Yes, leader. Greyfeather looked at the angry faces of the students with some amusement and shook his head. To be honest, we rarely engage in the theft of other people's Pokémon. Despite being called poachers, our business mainly involves selling Pokémon with potential at low prices on the black market to people without trainer qualifications, or transferring preserved Pokémon captured by the League to new owners. It's precisely because of this that we rarely cross the League's bottom line, allowing us to escape through the cracks like rats, and then grow, leading us to where we are now. Did we do wrong? No, we didn't. Thanks to our existence, many people from humble backgrounds could find a path to change their lives. Thanks to our existence, some Pokémon don't have to worry about food in the wild and pointless competition. Instead, they can find shelter in the arms of wealthy families. Thanks to our existence, those preserved Pokémon don't have to be kept in captivity as mere ornaments. They can experience different lives. Isn't that our contribution? The system is what's wrong here. Becoming a trainer requires money, obtaining Pokémon requires money, everything is legal in the hands of the League, but it becomes illegal in our hands. The rich get richer, the poor get poorer, and the weak have no chance to succeed whatsoever. Dreams are nothing but daydreams for those who enjoy comfort. This system is too corrupt. Do you understand? No, people like you, born into privilege, will never comprehend. Now, I've changed my mind. I want to try taking away the treasures of people like you who live in comfort. Pokémon, right? What will you do if you lose them? Anger, or indifference? Maybe you'll just go out and catch another. Greyfeather's pupils, like black holes, gazed at the 7 students and smiled. Seeing these new generation trainers reminded him of his own childhood experiences, igniting an indescribable fury within him. Resources always flow toward the wealthier and the more powerful people. The weak, the poor, they only become weaker. Whether when dealing with the rich or the poor, it made him see through this corrupt system. This wrong thing should be destroyed, and then built anew. Terence's scalp tingled, and he struggled to swallow his saliva. He didn't know how the others comprehended Greyfeather's words, but to Terence, Greyfeather was almost like a lunatic. However, what worried him most at this moment wasn't any astonishing scheme by this poaching organization but the words that came from this person's mouth. They intended to take away their Pokémon. Beautifully. Swablu, when he thought of them, Terence couldn't hold back. It was something he absolutely couldn't accept. Even though he knew that staying put might keep him out of harm's way, he couldn't tolerate the idea of Beautifully and Swablu being taken away. Terence trembled involuntarily. Raising his head and looking at Greyfeather's mocking expression, he suddenly had a realization. This guy is doing this on purpose. His own safety, or having his Pokémon taken away. Which should he choose? Terence felt like he had fallen into an ice cave, feeling like he was being toyed with. Even if the other person was a lunatic, it was clear he wasn't an idiot. Someone capable of controlling such an organization, his intelligence was definitely not in question. What set him apart was his peculiar personality and mindset, something beyond the ordinary, which normal people couldn't comprehend, and that could only be formed after a series of events. This Greyfeather was evidently such a person. Watch over them, Greyfeather patted the poacher's shoulder and left the area. Perhaps out of a twisted personality or perverse amusement, he had teased this group of students for reasons unknown. Watching Greyfeather's departing figure, Jinbi, CG, Orange, Yuko and the others were left breathless, their eyes filled with confusion. For people of their age, this was a deeply traumatic experience. Just stay put. The poacher growled, and continued to watch over the students with his Ariados. This poacher gang was systematically and quickly mining Waterstone Vein. They had assigned just an ordinary poacher to guard these seemingly harmless students. Terence groaned inwardly. Ariados, and a poacher. If he relied on Misdreavus's illusions for a surprise attack, he might just be able to escape. But the key was that the opposing group had numerous members, and he had no idea where their Pokémon were being held. If he recklessly charged out without a plan, he'd only be wasting his efforts and potentially missing the most crucial opportunity. Chapter 98, Surrounded. What to do? Terence was inwardly feeling anxious, but he was helpless. He was currently too weak, and he had no ability to successfully retrieve the Pokeballs from the blockade of dozens of people. If he could retrieve the Pokeballs, with the 7 of them, they might just barely manage to escape, but even the first step was extremely difficult for the present Terence. The few minutes felt unbearably long for Terence and his group. He had 2 choices. One was to have Misdreavus create a deep illusion to make the poacher faint and fall into a deep sleep. However, given Misdreavus's current abilities, he couldn't guarantee fully hypnotizing the Pokémon. This method carried the risk of having to battle Ariados. The second choice was to create a lower-level illusion, a kind of deception, to deepen the opponent's perception through the 5 senses and the environment. This had a higher success rate. His mind was racing at lightning speed, and Terence felt like his brain was about to explode. There was no way, in the current situation, he couldn't think of a good solution. At North Lake, the excavation of the water source stone had reached its final stage, and the anxiousness in Terence's heart grew. Even if he tried to remain calm, his body's instincts made it difficult. As the calculations continued to churn in his mind, Terence seemed to hear the explosive clash of thoughts. No, Terence's eyes suddenly widened, and chaotic, noisy sounds reached his ears. They were real voices. Something seemed to have happened. Various commands, mechanical operations, the sound of footsteps, and many people shouting, "We've just received information, the police are here." Upon hearing this voice, not only Terence but also the others were overjoyed. However, the poacher who was guarding them had a tense expression, which made Terence realize it was the right moment. "It's now. Misdreavus." Terence didn't hesitate and immediately signaled Misdreavus to cast an illusion. After honing its skills in the haunted house, Misdreavus' illusions had improved significantly. Amidst the poacher's panic, the confuse ray was cast without warning on both the poacher and Ariados. Boom! 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 Continuous explosions, scattered flames, and every area was filled with attacks and devastation. The poacher was taken aback. Has the situation escalated to this extent? Terence had chosen the second choice. Under this illusion, the poacher saw North Lake engulfed in flames, with the poacher and the police fighting. Everything was chaotic and disarrayed. He looked back at the listless and obedient students lying on the ground. He clenched his teeth and said to Ariados, which was also affected by the illusion, "We're leaving, we can't stay here." Whether he wanted to join the battle or escape, in the current chaotic situation outside, no one would pay attention to a lone poacher guarding 7 students. "While I have the chance." The other 6 students stared blankly at the rapidly changing expressions on the poacher's face, as if he had seen something terrifying. The poacher ran away, making them feel a surge of excitement. "Somebody's coming to rescue us," Yuko exclaimed with joy, almost on the verge of tears from the excitement. At this moment, Misdreavus had untied Terence's rope, and he quickly stood up. Ignoring the astonished gazes of the others, Terence hastily moved his body to adapt quickly for action. "Terence, you!" Jinbi exclaimed in astonishment as he watched Terence escape from the ropes, and then Misdreavus, whose figure kept flashing around. Not only him, but the remaining people also looked at Terence, hesitating to speak. At this moment, Terence made a shushing motion, intending to force them from the ropes. "Listen to me, next, I'm planning." Terence whispered and approached Jinbi, swiftly untying the rope that bound him. Then, with the help of Misdreavus and Jinbi, he worked to free the others. "I'm going to rescue Septal and others," Misanji said as soon as he was freed. "Count me in." "Me too." "Understood, let's go," Terence sighed inwardly and called Misdreavus, and the group of them started to move stealthily. 3 minutes later, they arrived at a narrow path out of the poachers' line of sight. From their facial expressions, it looked as though they had lost their souls. Terence's expression was complex, and his heart grew increasingly restless. This was the only way. 7 people acting together, even with a 90% success rate, would definitely be reduced to 9% or even lower. Terence's only reliance now was Misdreavus, and Misdreavus could not possibly have the energy to take care of 7 people simultaneously. So, the remaining 6 people were a burden to Terence at the moment. "He can understand your desire to save Pokémon. But because of that, we must not act recklessly." Terence glanced back at Misdreavus and clenched his teeth. The only thing he could do now was to trust Misdreavus. Misdreavus had already surveyed the nearby terrain. In the illusion created by Misdreavus, the 6 of them would mistakenly believe they were going to rescue Pokémon, then walk far away through an uninhabited safe path, and eventually fall into a deep sleep. After that, it would be up to Terence. "Misdreavus, let's go. Maintain order." Greyfeather looked at his panicking subordinates and shouted in disappointment. Poachers would always be poachers, and their tendency to panic when they saw the police couldn't be changed no matter what. The speed of executing the usual drills was much slower than usual. "What's the matter with that guy?" a captain shouted, looking at a team member who had lost their wits and was staggering aimlessly. "Ariados! Use string shot! Quickly, stop them!" "On the other side. How's it going?" The man in black jacket approached Greyfeather and asked. "Thanks for the reminder, but we've finished the extraction. There's no need to engage them directly. Let's retreat." Greyfeather looked at him. "By the way, I might not have made it clear to you, but it seems like there are a lot of police personnel this time. It's not just the Snowpoint City's deployment. My crocodile told me there are at least 100 people, and they all have proper riot gear." "Impossible," Greyfeather said. The man in black jacket nodded, saying, "Honestly, I didn't want to be involved with you from the beginning. Your recent actions have become more and more extravagant. While I can gain some benefits this time, deep down, I didn't want to be part of this operation with you. I'm here mainly because of our past friendship. I have a bad feeling that these police deployments aren't all there is. You seem to have bitten off more than you can chew this time." As he spoke, the man in black jacket threw a pokeball, releasing a chubby, orange-colored Pokémon Dragonite. "I have a bad feeling, old friend. I've given you the warning. I'm leaving now. Good luck to you." Chapter 99, All the Parties Moving Out. As time passed, the official forces responsible for suppressing the poacher gang drew closer. Personnel consisted of 3 main groups. First were the international police, armed with weapons like batons and firearms, and dressed in protective gear, responsible for addressing illegal activities in various regions. Then there were the Pokémon prosecutors, tasked with in-depth investigations and undercover work to assess the legitimacy of certain organizations. Lastly, there were the officer Jennies, directly responsible for the trainer community. These 3 groups formed the violent arm of the current Pokémon League system, and in such large-scale operations, Pokémon were relegated to a lower status. Compact, highly agile, and possessing strong individual combat abilities, these types of Pokémon are often standard choices for police officers. The police love using Pokémon like Magnemite, which can destroy electronic devices, Machamp, which can carry out forceful demolitions, Arcanine and Growlithe, which are the symbols of the Jenny family and can be used for tracking, to maximize the effectiveness of their operations. Greyfeather stood in the center of the crowd, hands behind his back, calmly observing his subordinates moving around. At that moment, a poacher hastily rushed over, looking ashamed. "Leader, those 7 people have escaped." This poacher was the one who had been hypnotized by Misdreavus. After being awakened by his companions, he quickly recalled that there had been no intense battle, just some commotion during their retreat upon discovering the police's presence. After piecing together the events, he realized he had been deceived. So, he quickly rushed back to the scene, but there was no longer anyone there, and the pile of ropes on the ground only added to his anger. Escaped. Greyfeather's eyes flickered. Have you searched nearby? Yes, we've searched, but there's no trace of them. They must have escaped, the subordinate replied, his face turning red with embarrassment over his mistake. If they've escaped, then they've escaped. Their Pokémon and Gyarados' Pokeball are kept together, right? Yes, the Pokeballs are all there. For a moment, Greyfeather almost sneered but remembered the warning from that person. He quickly said, in that case, let's not worry about them. They're a bunch of useless trash. And, conduct a thorough investigation again. It's possible that the enemy has infiltrated us. Not far from where Greyfeather was speaking to the poacher, a person wearing a similar poacher outfit lowered their head and contemplated for a moment. Wait, something's not right. What 7 people are they talking about? Damn, I can't directly contact Officer Jenny and the others. The information is too limited. On the other side, a woman with cold green eyes, her whole body was controlled by mysterious white light, as if floating in the air. Next to her, a purple Pokémon with a shining red gem on its forehead, proudly moved through the mountains, in sync with the woman's movements. Espion, pick up the pace. In the sky, on their way to North Lake from Crown Academy, a person sat atop a creature covered in silver armor, adjusted their earpiece. Zzz. Zzz. Teacher Julian, please don't act impulsively. First, prioritize finding Teacher Teresa, and then cooperate with the police. This is the best way to protect the students. We've sent some teachers to support you. Please remain calm. The voice through the earpiece was unclear. The man on the Skarmory listened briefly, then impatiently removed the earpiece and tossed it aside. I'll do things my way. When I used to face poachers, you were still writing research papers. The deep pupils gazed into the distance as the man propped himself up with his hands. One pant leg fluttering in the breeze. Click. Click. At this moment, the poachers were already preparing to retreat. Terence didn't dare to hide inside the truck. Faced with a group of 5 poachers passing by, he slipped beneath the truck. With both hands and feet hooked onto the truck, he strained to listen to their conversation. However, these conversations were of little use to Terence, serving only as worthless chatter that couldn't provide any useful information. His top priority now was to find the location where they had stored his Pokeballs. There were too many poachers, making it difficult for Terence to make a move without being noticed, but if he didn't move soon, it would be too late. After a mental struggle, Terence took a deep breath and decided to take a gamble. But at that moment, the entire truck suddenly shook slightly. With the sound of the engine, Terence felt jolts coming from all directions. So soon. The poachers moved faster than Terence had imagined. In fact, less than 10 minutes after Terence and others escaped, they had finished transporting the water source stone from North Lake. Then, the poachers each took their positions and prepared to leave. The movement of the truck made Terence's situation even more challenging. The bumpy road aside, just holding onto the bottom of the truck was physically exhausting. I can't go on like this. Mischievous. Terence's arms were already beginning to ache. If he kept maintaining this position for a few more minutes, he would certainly fall off. Mischievous, responding to Terence's command, Mischievous, who had been following him, began to search for something. It then condensed a small shadow ball and slammed it under the truck. Inside the truck, the poachers immediately felt the shaking and grew agitated. We're under attack. Someone exclaimed in surprise. Stop being a scaredy cat, an experienced poacher sighed. There's no one here. The noise came from below. It must have hit something. I see, as expected, there was no further noise, and the poachers began to relax. Terence looked at the iron plate that had been knocked off, and he reached inside with difficulty. His body gradually swayed as he moved inside. After this incident, he swore to improve his physique. Even if he couldn't defeat a Machoke with bare hands, he had to be able to adapt to various high-difficulty movements. The place where Terence crawled into was similar to a trunk, but it was sealed. He could only enter through the front of the truck. It was a pitch-black, cramped space with a massive machine humming and vibrating. Just this one machine occupied nearly 3/4 of the space in this area. This smell, Terence blinked hard, a pungent odor emanating from the machine. He forced himself to observe the surroundings. It seems like I didn't attract too much attention. Originally, Misdreavus had been prepared near the door. If any poacher entered, it would have rendered them unconscious and created an illusion to make others think Terence was that poacher. However, doing so would have increased the likelihood of being captured to more than 60%. Chapter 100, Making a Breakthrough Using Frontal Assault. In the cramped space, Terence crawled on the floor, and as the truck moved, the constant jolting made Terence go up, down, up. Misdreavus, go and check the situation, be careful. Lying in the foul-smelling abandoned carriage, Terence carefully ordered Misdreavus. Little Misdreavus nodded and immediately concealed itself, silently passing through obstacles and flying to the other side. Chased by so many police officers, the poachers were also nervous. The slightest movement would make their nerves tense. If their activities were exposed, they would spend the rest of their lives in prison. Not good, just got the news, the deal's off. A poacher in charge of communication broke into a cold sweat, finding it hard to believe. Just received word that the client who commissioned us gave up on the deposit and cancelled this deal. Wait. Another person's expression changed. Cancelled the deal? Why? We've already got the goods, we can finish the handover soon, can't we? I don't know. 5 minutes earlier. Greyfeather, the leader of the poacher gang, picked up the phone, looked at the familiar number and took the call. It's me. A raspy voice came from the other side of the phone. The voice had obviously been heavily processed, sounding distorted with a hint of electronic interference, giving people goosebumps. The items have been collected, Greyfeather said. But I heard you guys are being pursued by the police, currently running for your lives. Can you safely deliver the items to me? The voice on the other end asked. Don't worry. As long as we enter the depths of MT Coronet, the police won't be able to catch us, Greyfeather replied. You seem pretty confident, the other person was surprised. Of course, around the northern part of MT Coronet, there are a total of 4 cities and 7 towns with police deployments. They've allocated over half of their resources just to guard the 3 Great Lakes. As long as we use guerrilla tactics within MT Coronet, the police won't dare to engage us head-on. Especially since each of our vehicles is equipped with machines filled with massive electrical power. If it weren't for that we want to avoid unnecessary combat, we would have chosen to break through directly by now. Is that so? Is that device useful? The other person asked. It's quite impressive. I now believe in your capabilities, Greyfeather replied. Hee. Well, I have some news for you. It's said that all 4 cities and 7 towns connected to the northern part of MT Coronet has sent police deep into MT Coronet to intercept you. In addition, an elite team from the International Police, including an officer, has been mobilized from headquarters. They're all on their way to MT Coronet. Greyfeather pondered for a moment and shook his head slowly. It's impossible. Even if it's for the 3 source stones, it shouldn't have alerted so many forces. Indeed, while the water, fire, and thunder source stone represent immense wealth, they also require some time to accumulate. It's a lengthy process. If you want to obtain wealth quickly, it's not achievable through them alone. Even in the Sinnoh region, there are many locations with evolution source stones. Dealing with a small poacher gang doesn't justify deploying so many personnel. Greyfeather remained silent for a long time and then sighed softly. What are you trying to say? You were the one who convinced me in the first place. Your words are too roundabout now. That's not your style. Just say it directly. The deal is cancelled. The other person calmly stated. What? Greyfeather was infuriated. Are you playing with me? At this point, you want to cancel the deal? Those 3 source stones are crucial for your upcoming experiments, aren't they? Yeah, and there's something you can't buy with money, the other person laughed. Greyfeather said, I want to know why. Did whatever you said before all a lie? If we're to create a new world, with our abilities, it's possible. We're the same kind of people. No. The other person spoke calmly, I'm pursuing a new world for myself, and my world is entirely different from yours. What exactly do you want to achieve, and are you aware of the consequences of your actions? You, who can continuously provide us with this level of technology, is definitely not a nameless person. Am I right, Mr. Shingo? Greyfeather said with a grim expression. You're testing my patience. Whether we get caught by the police or manage to escape smoothly, it won't benefit you in any way, being a real estate tycoon of the Sinnoh region. Only your corporation has the means to obtain this level of technology. Did you really think we hadn't investigated you at all? Give me a reasonable explanation, or else both our sides are destined to fight till death. Instead of that, don't you think you should consider your own situation now? The information I just shared is all true, the other person replied. Don't doubt its authenticity. Indeed, 3 source stones alone wouldn't have attracted such a massive manhunt, but what if it's for that electric device? It's the principle behind that machine. For the Sinnoh League, that thing is far more valuable than the 3 source stones. If they can monopolize that technology for a year, the electricity profits in Sinnoh region will surpass what 3 source stones could offer. If the technology leaks out and attracts the interest of major corporations, the losses will be much greater than 3 source stones. Greyfeather's mind suddenly clicked. Was the other person referring to Ray Cow? Since their poacher gang had risen to prominence, the other person's corporation had maintained a firm partnership with them, and has consistently provided technological support for their operations. Likewise, the gang had carried out numerous illegal operations on behalf of the other side. If they were wiped out, the illegal activities of the other person's corporation would undoubtedly be exposed. Greyfeather couldn't comprehend the other person's intentions. If Ray Cow's technology is the reason for the police pursuit, why did he share this technology with us, and how did the League know that we had acquired it? Greyfeather's thoughts churned, puzzled. After a long pause, the raspy voice from the other end came again. In any case, Mr. Codename 16, our deal is terminated. Take care of yourself. Click. Click. The call was disconnected. Greyfeather's expression was uncertain, unable to confirm the authenticity of the other party's words. However, compared to the risk of their trade information being leaked due to their arrest, the other side probably felt more at ease facing their retaliation rather than dealing with the police investigation. Otherwise, they wouldn't have called to warn them. If the other side is telling the truth, then venturing deep into MT Coronet would be suicidal. Police officers from all directions would continuously pour in, and eventually they would really be surrounded. We still have a chance to break out now. Greyfeather gripped the phone. Listening to the information from Miss Drevis, Terence was stunned. They chose to return the same way. This meant that the poacher gang was preparing to launch a frontal assault on the police in order to break through their lines and escape. These people are insane. Terence took a deep breath, but for him, this was the best outcome.